really need to buy a desk.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone. Hopefully you can see me now. This is on Just Restart, and by this I mean me, the human, and this is my beautiful cat Ruby. Hi, baby girl. How are you? You see her? Isn't she like a little lion? She's like, all right, why are you picking me up now? I'm camera shy. It's okay. All right. And that's my good friend Brandon.
On camera this time.
He's on camera. He's on camera. And my hair is wet. I just took a shower, so forgive me for taking a shower after work.
How dare you be clean?
Is the camera angle a little
not
off?
allowed.
Camera angle's a little off.
Have you met gamers? You're not allowed to have hygiene. You ever been to a Smash convention?
Well,
I hear those are...
Speak for yourself. I've always had hygiene.
Same.
That's also, I will say,
Can't fit the stereotype. Gotta fight it.
I do have a problem with going to tournaments, though. Because
You're just not the one that's... You're just the one that has to deal with the smell. You're not radiating the smell.
Yeah. Yeah, so my hair will dry soon, so if I look ridiculous... I mean, I look ridiculous regardless. Who cares? Anyways, so here's the plan, guys.
Yeah, you always look ridiculous.
Yeah, whatever. What is... I'm a madman. I'm a madman. But you know what? I'm a madman who's going to be very happy tomorrow. Because we are getting that General Nintendo Direct. And tonight, that's what we're talking about. It has been confirmed by Nintendo today, as the insiders suggested it would be, and it's happening. It's 40 plus minutes, and it's going to be focusing on games mostly coming out in the winter.
Mostly. Also, they didn't say 2022. They said winter specifically.
Right.
We will touch on that, of course.
Oh, man, I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to be touching on a lot of things here tonight, guys. Oh, yeah. We're doing lots of touching and not in inappropriate ways. But anyways, we have a guest coming on. Some of you may remember Cameron from Gamebird Classic. He's not here yet. He will be here shortly. So bear with me and Brandon and all of the nonsense.
Bear with our terrible selves.
Yes.
Bear through us.
Yes, he'll be here. He'll be here in a little bit.
The real entertainment.
I have my phone on hand for when he's ready. So there'll be a little bit of a transition in a moment. What'd you say, Brandon?
So we're just saving the best for a little bit later. You're left with us for a bit, but the entertainment's coming.
Yes. Anyways, guys in the chat, thank you for being here already. Would appreciate if you could like the stream so more can see the stream, and also let me know how everything is looking and sounding. Does it sound good? Can you hear the background? The music okay? Is it too loud? Is it just fine? Does Brandon sound well? Can you hear me well? Let me know. Let me know if you see a weird ghost, just because that would be interesting.
That would be funny, yes.
It would be very interesting. But yeah, I'm just clearly we're I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just excited, okay? I'm excited. The Nintendo Direct is happening. Charles Shadell, thank you. Jaden, thank you. Mad Lad, thank you. Brandon's a little quiet. Brandon, why don't you talk louder?
Well, yeah, why don't I stop being a little bee and just talk louder,
Very good.
We'll start shouting from now on.
Having Hope 5, thank you. Zubem, you like the stream because you like short painted nails. I think is it your nails there. Yes, there they go.
Nails, they are painted green on the thumb. My other nails, it's the opposite. They're kind of chipped right now, but I don't think you can tell because
I can't tell. Small. I'm not a fan of when things are chipped, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean they don't look amazing at the moment, but
it's all good. It is all good. Alrighty, so
I'm gonna get earrings like Link eventually, like little blue circles. Just gotta buy the little earrings you put in to heal the piercing, and just going for the look. Zelda tattoos, probably. Cool stuff. Anyways.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and go through the chat. If you guys at me, it's a little bit easier for me to get to things. So I'm gonna kind of check in with you what you guys are saying here, do a little bit of Q&A while I wait for Cameron to come on, and then we're gonna kind of dive into something a little bit more structured. But if you've been here before, you know it is. Structure is not the structure, but it's fine.
Yes.
All right, so first at here, J.R. Tolkien added me. Andres, with regards to the Direct, in quotes, I'm stupid, you are smart. I was wrong, you were right. You are the best, I'm the worst. You're very good looking, I'm not very attractive. I appreciate the joke, buddy. You know, I think it's important to always, you know, kind of keep your expectations in check, right?
Yeah.
But on the flips, it's an interesting balance, though, because on one hand, keeping your expectations in check, you know, perhaps protects you from a massive disappointment when those expectations are not met. But on the flip side, if you're always the Debbie Downer, if you're always having your expectations so in check that, in fact, they're not actually in check, they're like expectations are, you know, should be something of what should be close to reality, right? Yeah. So there's that's the middle ground. I think oftentimes people will sort of confuse proper expectations for bad expectations, like negative, like it's got to be negative, right? Like it's not an easy balance, and it really isn't, you know.
But we like to have fun here, and I think you know, having expectations, doing predictions, having hopes can be almost just as fun sometimes as like the games actually releasing. Like sometimes I have just as much fun on the podcast just talking about games as I do actually playing them when they release. Like obviously, if they never released, that would be bad. But like I do, it's just fun. You know, let yourself have fun as long as you're not like, you know, hating Nintendo when some of your more crazy expectations aren't met. You know, you can have fun. Let yourself have fun.
Listen. If tomorrow I don't see Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Prime Remake, Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, F-Zero GX Remaster, I can skip Pikmin. If I don't see all of that, I'm going to be disappointed. No, like those are my predictions, by the way. But yeah, we'll hone in on that a little bit later. Point is, like, I have talked about this before, but I just feel like it's kind of the thing that we kind of need to talk about every time, because I think it's important that when you go into these things, I think it's okay to be excited. I think it's okay to be super excited. It's fun, to Brandon's point. But I think we also need to try and be flexible. So when I say that, maybe we don't get Breath of the Wild 2 tomorrow. But maybe let's show something else off cool instead, right? Like, maybe we don't get a Breath of the Wild 2 confirmation, which would be mind-boggling if we don't get any details on that, right? But hypothetically, if we don't, maybe we get, like, a 3D Mario announcement instead, or we get a Metroid Prime 4 instead, you know? Or maybe it's not necessarily, like, huge things, but there's just a number of smaller things that add up to something pretty good as well. You know, like, what if they announce a Star Fox, a Donkey Kong, and F-Zero tomorrow? Well, none of those would be Breath of the Wild, but collectively, all three of those games would be a really good time, right? And really nice surprises. Or Pikmin 4. There's so many, you know, possibilities out there. So all I'm trying to say is try and go in with an open mind. That's the perspective I have, and I find myself whenever there's a direct happening, you know, I'm not always entirely floored, but every time I come out of a direct, I see a few things. I'm like, oh, you know what? That's going to be fun to play. I'm looking forward to that. And more times than not, I don't even get around to every game that Nintendo announces because there's just so many.
Yeah, no. There's so many games I'm like interested in, but I never end up playing.
Yeah. So open minds. That's all that's the main theme here. But let's move on here. Super Chris saying that there's nothing wrong with predicting. Thank you. AJ, AB James, all I can hope for is a new Donkey Kong game for 2023. There may be a new Donkey Kong game coming for 2023. I do believe that a Donkey Kong game is in development. And just so we're clear, because I know there's some new people here who weren't around when I initially reported it, there are other insiders that have reported there's a Donkey Kong game in development. I also have heard something up to that effect, and I heard that a while ago. I trust the source. Right. So, you know, I do 100% believe it. Not just because of that, but because if you just look at the external evidence, the Donkey Kong Park, Donkey Kong in the Mario movie.
What year is the park supposed to be releasing? Actually, like in Japan, when is that supposed to be opening? Because I feel like that whichever year that is, it's probably the year Donkey Kong game's gonna come out.
You mean the expansion, right?
Yeah. The Donkey Kong Park expansion. Sorry if I was not clear on that.
I don't know if we know. I want to say 2025.
I thought it was 2024 or something.
No, you're right. It's set to open in... Yeah, it's set to open in 2024. So
I would suspect maybe then. Though they could have it next year if they wanted to just jump a pipe a little bit early. You know, maybe have something alongside the Mario movie if they don't have 2D Mario ready. Or 3D Mario. But I kind of feel like they might have both of those pretty soon. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, so like, you know, if the expansion is opening in Japan in 2024, assuming there's no delays, I feel like that should give us a good idea of the timeline. Like, I think 2024 at the latest is when we see a new Donkey Kong game. And I think, honestly, I think 2023 is probably the year. But that doesn't mean they announce it tomorrow. They could announce it in February. They could announce it at E3 next year. It really just kind of depends on when the game's coming.
We really haven't heard any more rumors since last year, have we?
No.
Like any new information?
No significant updates. No.
I kind of feel like we might have heard something when they... I feel like last year might have been when they were starting the project, or maybe a little bit after they started. That's kind of what I'm suspecting, to be honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see it till like 2024, and they were actually like in the middle of still concepting, because we didn't hear anything of any concrete details of what the game actually really was.
Like, we still don't know what genre it is. We don't know if it's like Donkey Kong Country style, like 2D, or if it's like Donkey Kong 64 or somewhere in the middle. We don't know that. But the belief, though, from what's been murmured, is that it's probably more along the lines of 2D, but we don't really know. I mean, fact matters, until it's out, we don't know, right? But let's move on to chat here. Dark Shadow Rage 2. Just give me Metroid Prime HD and Breath of the Wild 2 and I'm happy. You know what? If that's all you're hoping to see tomorrow,
you might be very happy.
You might be very happy. I think those two things are pretty likely.
Pretty good bets on those. Nothing's guaranteed though, so.
Nothing is guaranteed, that is true. Paul Dune. Hello homies, ready for the podcast. We're semi-ready now. We're getting the show on the road. Josiah Sutton, I hope that Fire Emblem War of Holy War gets a remake. I know that there's a remake that's supposedly like in the works or near completion, if not already.
Probably
Nintendo,
another Echoes game.
Yeah, Nintendo may announce that soon. I know that there's a belief that a new Fire Emblem game, I'm not sure if it's a remake or just a brand new one entirely, is like ready. The point is that there's insiders that think it could be announced in this direct.
Right.
So I don't think that's a crazy expectation. Regardless of rumor, I don't think it's a crazy expectation, because if you look at the history of Fire Emblem releases, especially on the 3DS, which I think is a good comparison, because that's when the Awakening occurred, literally, and pun intended, because Fire Emblem Awakening. But since then, Fire Emblem, you know, we saw multiple Fire Emblems on the 3DS. You wait 2 or 3 years, there's going to be another Fire Emblem. On the Switch, it hasn't been like that. I think some of that has to do with COVID. I think some of that has to do with Nintendo literally just holding back. So, you know, I think we're due. We're absolutely due for an actual Fire Emblem. I'm not talking about Fire Emblem Warriors. I'm talking about an actual Fire Emblem. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up direct. I didn't predict it in my predictions, but I did mention it as a possibility that has a good likelihood.
Yeah.
So
we might just see Fire Emblem Warriors DLC though. 3 Hopes specifically, of course.
Yeah, they may not, and that's kind of part of it for me. Like, I'm not sure Fire Emblem is the game that's coming out in the early part of the year, and I don't think it's the kind of game they need to tease really well in advance. Like, I feel that if we don't get it tomorrow, my belief is that it's gonna get announced in maybe next year, in the early year direct. Because I can see it coming out next year. I just don't think they need to announce it yet. Unless it's like, you know, coming out in April or something. Then, yeah, they should probably announce it. Let's see here. Moving on with chat. AB James, it seems at this point Nintendo is going to fill out a 2023 lineup, and a really impressive one, transition year or not. I think it's an interesting point you bring up. Well, one, just sort of alluding to it being a transition year. When you say transition year, do you mean moving on to the next generation? I think we're getting close to that point. And
yeah, we're getting there.
You look at the games that are rumored. There's a lot of remasters rumored. And I wonder if the reason for that, assuming the rumors are true, is because remasters are easier to get out. You know, they're lower budget things, but they're still going to be quality products that we're going to pay full price for and probably really enjoy. Mm-hmm. But they will function in terms of sort of, I guess, divvying up resources in terms of development. Like Nintendo doesn't have to use their big studios to make those projects. Smaller studios, they can be outsourced. They can get done well, just with some minor oversight. And if that's all done, like, then the bigger teams are focusing on projects for the next generation already. Yet we're still getting content to close out this generation. And I don't mean to say that we're only going to get remasters from here until the end, but it's going to be a little bit more of a blend, as we're seeing, as we have been seeing. So, you know, just kind of an interesting thought there. You know, we don't know exactly what Nintendo is going to announce tomorrow, but something that I want to kind of focus on is that whole winter timing and what that sort of suggests for their approach to this Direct. And I've talked about before, and I know you guys have agreed with me, Brandon feels the same, that this Direct is going to be used to start to outline what's to come in the beginning of next year. Spoiler, January and February are a part of winter. Nintendo said they're giving us games mostly focused on winter. But before we continue on, I think Cameron's ready. Okay, Cameron's ready. So I'm going to very quickly add our guest here. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to set that up real quick. So first I'm going to... Yeah, you're just see this lovely face of Link while I go ahead and give him a call real quick. Add him here. We're adding our friend Cameron. Hopefully he's there. Hey, Cameron, you there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Hold on 1 sec. My audio's a little bit.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and transition to our faces. But of course, the names are reversed because Discord always chooses a different place to have the names. That's okay. I'll fix it. Brandon, you're fine. I'm not fine.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing, man?
I am good. I am just fixing our names here on the stream because Discord is unpredictable.
Yeah, no problem.
There's 2 Game Bird Classics.
It's 2 of them. Oh god, they're multiplying.
Well, I'm hearing a little bit of echo.
A little bit of echo?
I just made it really loud. I don't hear it anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
We're good? Cool.
I think
Yeah,
so.
it's good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so awkward transitions aside, guys, this is Cameron from Game Bird Classic. His channel is linked in the description below. He also covers Nintendo content, is a big Zelda fan, and I thought now would be a great time to have him on because, well, we have a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, as we've been talking about, and Zelda, I think, is going to be a big deal tomorrow, for sure.
Yeah, I second that. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm a little under the weather, so if I sound a little sinusy or scratchy, I apologize. But
It's that time of year.
Yes, but I fully expect the Nintendo gods to heal me as we discuss the magic that is Nintendo and Zelda.
Pop one a fairy out of a bottle, you'll be doing well.
Well,
There we go.
On the note of healing, I actually had a migraine 2 hours ago. Yeah, 2 hours ago, I thought I was going to die. But, I think the excitement to talk about this Direct has sort of given me another wind of health. And I'm pulling through. It's too bad my
brother isn't into Nintendo because he tweaked his back yesterday and he's all out of work for the next week. If only he was a Nintendo fan,
Yeah.
Healed right up.
Yeah, he problem solved.
I am still hearing a little bit of echo. when Brandon was
Might be
talking.
me. Hold on, let me check my.
Yeah. If you go into Discord in the sound settings, you can use probably like the crisp background, like all that kind of background audio stuff usually cleans any echo right up.
Are you still
Once you
getting
have
it?
all those
I'm not
turned
sure
on.
if it's me, but
It's when I talk or Brandon talks.
Yeah.
Ah,
No, I think
it's pretty
is
subtle.
because it happened when you came in, but it's subtle. Yeah.
yeah. That's why I usually use earphones, just because sometimes the filtering doesn't pick it up.
New ones. Here. Let's see. How's that?
Brandon,
better?
go on some sort of tirade.
Ah, God. Ah, Nintendo. Wah.
It seems fine for now.
Seems good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Guys, let us know how everything is sounding now, please. Yeah, man. So, I was just about to kind of start talking about, like, this sort of, like, what Nintendo described and what it means, okay? I still hear the echo.
Mm-hmm.
Still there. Just a little bit. I
Hold
don't...
on.
Let's see.
Trying to figure out how to get to the settings on mobile so I can show him how to.
There's gotta be, like,
Why is mobile different from the desktop? God.
like a little bit of a filter.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to get to it.
Guys, let me see if I can figure this out.
Voice.
One other option, if you can still hear us, is to lower the volume for us a little bit, assuming you could still hear us.
Yeah.
That's definitely like more of a not an optimal solution, but a potential solution. I was gonna check in the chat real quick here.
Yeah, you check the chat. I'm gonna send in the group chat 2 pictures of my settings. Chat maybe
Can you hear him, Cameron?
get those like.
Yeah, I can hear him fine. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure you guys aren't getting an echo back from yourselves. Oh, I can't hear you now.
Oh, I'm not talking.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's kind of when I start talking a lot. Now you look frozen. I don't know if you're still there. Do not know. Okay. I got a super chat here while we wait for Cameron to figure things out. From Taker610. Thank you very much, Taker. Taker says, I refuse to hype responsibly. Just hype overload. Oh my god. Everything amazing is happening. Metroid Prime 5, Breath of the Wild 3, Super Mario Odyssey 17. It's all coming in one game for $60
One game.
tomorrow. Shadow drop.
Damn.
Yep, and it comes with
Nintendo's
peripheral.
doing their own meta thing.
It's
There's
a
an
new
entire universe
peripheral.
in
It's
Nintendo.
gonna hack into your brain, and it's basically like you're living in the game. It's not some wonky like VR thing. No, it's like you're living in the game. It's a mind tap.
It's like Spy Kids 3.
I didn't watch that.
Ah,
Are you guys getting an echo still?
No, you're a little quiet now,
Um,
but you're not by the mic. That's why. Talk to your mic. Ask how it's. No, I don't think I don't hear anything right now.
Okay.
I don't think but I think it's one of those things when like an actual continuous sort of conversation happens, but I'm not hearing it right now, so I think we're okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fixed it. I lowered the input from my microphone, so it's not as sensitive.
Okay. Now you do sound quiet now though, which is kind of like
Yeah. Just kind of try to pull the mic in closer to you so we can hear you a bit better. Remember,
Yeah.
it is a front-facing, like, depending on what pattern you have it on.
yo
Better?
talk normal.
Hello. How are you?
It's fine.
So it's okay. Yeah. Just try and speak loud, I guess.
Yeah. I'll speak loud for you guys.
Okay.
Sorry
Alright.
about that.
That's all right. Okay. Cool.
It's all good.
So, all right. Anyway, so let's get to what I want to sort of focus on, and we'll come back to the chat, okay? So, right now, let's go ahead and literally read what Nintendo is saying. Okay, so Nintendo of America tweeted out this morning, tune in at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, September 13th, for a Nintendo Direct live stream featuring roughly 40 minutes of information, mostly focused on Nintendo Switch games launching this winter. So roughly 40 minutes. It could end up being 38, 39 minutes. It could also end up being 43, 44 minutes. Like this, But I think being close to 40 tells us that this is a big direct with a lot of announcements. It's a general direct. That's what they are.
Yeah.
That I think we're all on the same page there. The more exciting element here is how they say mostly focused on games launching this winter. So two details there. When they say mostly focused, that is saying that technically it's saying the majority of the games will be that they're talking about for winter release, which takes place between December and February. But
right. It also inherently implies the opposite.
Exactly. That there's going to be other stuff beyond that. Yeah. So hypothetically speaking, theoretically speaking, a few different ways of speaking, if the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is coming out March, just outside of winter, technically spring, which is a part of the actual official release timing for the game, that could fall into this direct according to that wording.
Yeah, I mean, just any part of spring,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be March, but
Nintendo, they're always trying to kind of like set expectations. They always do. We're going to be focusing on games coming out this summer. We're going to be
maybe improve your gain a little bit.
What's that?
Maybe improve your gain a little bit, because being able to hear you is important too.
Yeah,
your voice is important, Cameron.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You can also turn him up on your end, Andres.
Is it any better?
Individually, but I would have to raise your volume too.
Any better?
No, you can turn him up for you.
You mean through Discord?
Discord.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's try that real quick. Let's try that real quick.
You just gotta figure out how to get to the setting. It's like you gotta right-click his profile on some part of the screen.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So he can just turn you up, and then.
And actually, I could probably up you a little bit too, Brandon. All right, talk, guys.
Yo.
Hello.
Cameron, talk.
Test. Hello.
I'm gonna make you a little louder. All right, your max loudness now. So whatever it is what it is.
Max loudness.
I'll turn my
For me,
up.
I turned you down. I don't know why it's so quiet on Andres'
right.
end.
But yeah, what I was saying was that
that's good.
Nintendo does this stuff all the time where they try and set expectations. They'll do that. We're only discussing games coming out this year. We're only discussing games coming out this summer. We're only doing games for the second half of the year, and then they'll always have like 3 or 4 announcements that bleed into the following year or following period. So I definitely think we'll get like a few things that are gonna be landing next year.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I think the direct is mostly about getting us through December, January, February. We don't have game releases for December or January or February. And that's what they told us they're focusing on, the winter. So that makes complete sense.
It is interesting because we still have to go through the fall, right? So as much as we're like, oh, they can talk about spring because of this wording, but this also includes anything they announce between now and December as well as not what they're focusing on. So it may be that we don't get that many more games actually for the rest of the year, and they're mostly focusing on stuff to build up the beginning of next year, leading up to Breath of the Wild in the spring.
Yeah, the schedule's still pretty packed leading into December. December's like the biggest anomaly. What's going to be the interesting game that launches then?
If anything,
but we're like leading up to that.
Because we have games for next month and November.
Yeah, between Sparks of Hope and Bayonetta 3 and Pokemon, we're stacked.
Yeah, it's a solid lineup.
This has been a good year for Nintendo games.
That said, though, do you think we are getting any other announcements to release this year?
Yeah, I think we'll get 1 or 2. I definitely think so. I don't think they're done with this year yet.
Something meaty for December.
You think we're getting something meaty? Meaty? How meaty? Is it like...
Whether it's a rumored...
Is it Prime? Is it like a Prime meat? Okay. All right, well, let's put a pin on this. We'll dive into our predictions in a moment. I kind of just want to catch up with the chat real quick. And I'm sure as we go through the chat, a lot of the actual topics we're going to end up covering will be covered by just kind of going through the chat here. The Zesty Car asks, is it Andre or Andres? Andres with an S. Not Andres, Andres or Andres. One of those. I usually just say Andres Restart. Andres Restart is okay too. Andres Restart seems to kind of flow a little bit better. And growing up in Miami, I would usually just say Andres. So, yeah. There you go. Anyway. Darkshot Rage 2. Since he said to at you, hopes for Metroid Prime HD. Okay. So, sure. Let's talk about that. One, my hope is that the rumor is true. My hope is that the rumor is true and we are getting a Metroid Prime remaster this holiday, as the rumor says. And Jeff Grubb has doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on it. We haven't had any other insiders deny that report either, right? Nate the Hate, Emily Rogers have been supportive of the information. And of course, they've also known that they've heard it. They haven't specifically reported for the holiday. Jeff Grubb has. So we're gonna assume, by we I mean me, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys as well are gonna assume that maybe this is right. I think it's right, and I think this is gonna be a big deal. Like Jeff Grubb has referred to it as a big boy remaster. What does big boy remaster mean? I think that means, to a lot of people, it's gonna basically be a remake. You know, like think maybe kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, how there was that debate. Is it a remaster? Is it a remake? And in reality, there's a bit of a spectrum there. But I think it's going to mean that a lot of the content in that game is going to be entirely reworked. It's going to look modern. Apparently, it looks really good. I just watched Nate the Hate's podcast, actually, with Jeff Grubb, and Jeff Grubb made mention that it looks really good. So, you know, I'm going to take their word for it. And I think it's going to be one of those games that Nintendo's going to reveal, and it's gonna be a bit of a showstopper. And I think there's value there, because this is the kind of game that, when it initially came out, is one of the highest reviewed games ever. It's considered by many to be one of the greatest games ever made. It's a high quality product, and to modernize it for this day, that's going to be amazing. And I think they're going to do it justice. So that's kind of like part of what I'm sort of hoping for it. But I'm also thinking that Nintendo's going to pivot this as sort of like their big release for the holiday. Now, I don't mean to say that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet isn't their big release, because that is objectively their biggest release for this holiday. Yeah. But in terms of saying it's coming from Nintendo, like a Nintendo studio, I think this is going to be their game. Because Bayonetta 3 is made by Platinum Games, not Nintendo. It's published by Nintendo, funded by Nintendo, but not Nintendo. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. It is using the Mario IP to some extent there. So obviously there's that, and Nintendo obviously has a partnership with Ubisoft, and they are publishing the game in some regions, but this is made by Ubisoft, not Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo's no developers on that team.
And then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, yes, Nintendo owns Pokemon to an extent. Yes, Pokemon, if it's not on mobile, it's always going to be on Nintendo. It is a Nintendo IP. It's a very, very Nintendo thing. But it's made by Game Freak, and while they usually develop for Nintendo, occasionally they don't. They're their own thing. So it's technically developed externally from Nintendo, outside of Nintendo. So all I'm getting at here is I think there should be at least one game that's coming from one of like Nintendo's own internal teams. Now, maybe it's just me being a stickler. That's, at the end of the day, does that really matter? No, it doesn't really matter. But I think Nintendo likes to have at least something from them to come out in the later half of the year. Now you can say, well, we got Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Splatoon 3. Yeah, we do. Those are internal Nintendo. So, you know, we don't have to have anything else, but I think it would be kind of nice. And I think Nintendo's going to really push it for this holiday. It's going to really kind of like fill out the lineup. I haven't spoken to content yet because I want to kind of give you guys an opportunity to sort of share your thoughts on this. Like, do you have hopes for this Metroid Prime remaster? Do you think it's going to be more like a remake, a remaster? Is it going to be very basic?
The part I want to touch on mostly is just like how much I think the graphics are going to change. That's the thing I'm most interested in, because I think the gameplay is already perfect. Don't really need to touch that. But those graphics, they age pretty well for GameCube, but they're definitely GameCube graphics. And I love the concept of Prime 1, especially on the Switch, because it's perfectly suited to the Switch's hardware. The Switch, as important as Breath of the Wild is, and big games like Xenoblade 3 definitely look great on there, it is not really good at open world games, just the hardware is not built towards that. It's really good at small environments that use small amounts of RAM where you can pack a ton of detail into like one room, which is why things like Luigi's Mansion look so good. And I think Prime is just gonna... I'm really hoping that they're using this as a beta test for like Prime 4's engine on the Switch. And I'm hoping they're using the same engine and actually just pretty much fully remaking everything. Probably still using the base code for different AIs and things like that, so they don't have to remake that. So the gameplay still feels the same, but like going back and remaking pretty much all the assets. I'm sure Samus's model is gonna be completely redone. I mean, the environments in Prime 1 especially are very, very low poly, so I imagine they'll go back and rework all that kind of stuff. All the bosses will probably be redesigned.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because the story is that Retro Studios had an engine that they were working with, and they showed Nintendo that engine with an early build of Metroid. It was like a small piece of Metroid Prime running on this new engine, and Nintendo saw this and they're like, okay, make this a full redo Metroid Prime with this engine. Like, that's the story. And then also that's when they abandoned Bandai Namco, or they separate from Bandai Namco, making Prime 4, and they had Retro do that. So I think to an extent these games have actually been developed in tandem. That's sort of like the whole rumor. And I believe the rumor because the sources are people who have been right and that are known industry people. Imran Khan, Nate the Hate, Emily Rogers, Jeff Grubb. Little bits and pieces have kind of come from these different people over time. So, I do think it is a new engine, and that's exciting to think about, because if they had this engine, it does sort of... The implication is that, yes, this engine is like a starting point for Prime 4. Exactly. Metroid Prime 1 is the blueprint for Prime 4. Or the prototype.
Right. Kind of like a little tech demo.
It's 4, and maybe it's kind of the only thing it sort of reminds me of right now is, remember when they announced they were developing a Zelda game for Wii U, and when they did that, they were talking about how they were messing with different art styles from different Zelda games, and they noticed how Wind Waker really flourished under this new lighting engine. Like, I think there's some similarity there where they go back to a previous game and just sort of see how a new engine would work on that, and some of those technologies will bleed into the next game. Now, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say that the gap between Metroid Prime HD and Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a smaller gap than the gap between Wind Waker HD and Breath of the Wild. But I think that the idea that playing, like, sort of redoing Metroid Prime sort of led to them coming up with ideas and technologies to build Prime 4, I think that much is a very likely thing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It seems like out of all the predictions and rumors for this big Nintendo Direct we're getting tomorrow, Prime Remake or Prime Remaster, whatever this is like the one constant, or like everyone, as you said, kind of is universally agreeing this is going to be there tomorrow. From what we're hearing, it sounds like this is absolutely going to be here tomorrow. And it also, like, the other thing is, we've been talking about this game for a long time. It sounds like it's been done forever. That's what a lot of the insiders are saying. This game's been ready for a long time, and Nintendo's kind of just been holding on to it. So yeah, I'm like you guys, I fully expect to see this game make an appearance tomorrow. I'm definitely a little bit more cautious about fully expecting this gnarly kind of next-gen remake of Prime, only because I don't want to get my hopes up for something like that. I'd love that so much, to see this like gorgeous, fully newly realized version of such a legendary title in the series. But I do think, Jeff Grubb and many others have said that this game looks really pretty. That's what they're hearing. It looks really good. So I do think we're going to get some beefed up visuals I'm not sure if it's going to be what Prime 4 looks like on the caliber of Prime 4, but I think it's going to look really pretty. I'm excited for some new control options. You know, we didn't have dual analog on the GameCube.
Very true. The GameCube controls are not fun in my opinion.
Or possibly with dual analog controls would be rad, as well as gyro. You know, obviously they had the version with
Splatoon 3
controls, but dual analog gyro. I mean, think of how well Splatoon works. Either of those ways. So I think we're gonna see some beefed up visuals. I think we're gonna see some new control options that just make the game feel a lot more modern and a lot more accessible. I'd also love to see a little bit of the game be maybe even remixed a little bit, kind of like how, you know, like Capcom redid Resident Evil 2, and they're doing 4, and they're kind of just modernizing it a little bit to make it feel, you know, more like a game that we'd get today.
I think if they do a full remake, we have a better chance of seeing
much. But a few modern touches, I think, would be awesome.
So to that point, I think there's some hope for that. And again, let's keep our expectations in check. I'm just gonna be happy that I'll be happy if it just has highly improved visuals with modernized controls like that. That's sort of my expectation. Yeah. But I am leaving a little wiggle room for a little bit more. If we don't get it, I'm not gonna be disappointed because I'm not expecting it. But I'm acknowledging it as a legitimate possibility. I mentioned earlier how, and again, this is just kind of like my own perspective. This is not like something that someone else said or what I heard behind the scenes or anything like that. But like, I'm sort of envisioning this kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And when I say that, I mean it from multiple angles. From one angle, in terms of they took a look at the game and they took a look at how maybe annoying it was, or sort of like they looked at how the map was done and navigation was done. They were like, you know what, we need to do this better. I think they're going to do the same for Metroid Prime. They take a look at the navigation and they're going to be like, you know what, we need to do this better. How we do that, we'll maybe dive into that in a little bit, but that's the main angle. Another angle is going to be, you know, giving HD textures, redoing the lighting, adding a whole bunch of new models. Like, they're going to put a lot of visual work into this game that's going to make it feel like a proper new game, pretty much. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition doesn't feel entirely like a whole modern day game, but it's pretty darn close. It's pretty close.
Pretty big leap. I mean, just looking at the cutscene presentation, it's so much more moody. Like, the atmosphere is so good. All the cinematics just look so much more. You get like way more immersed in them. It's a lot less video gamey looking.
Yeah, I mean, fixing the character models was the most important thing, because that's the thing that was going to age the most poorly. Because back on Wii, they were flat faces with like blurry textures. Yeah, so they fixed all that. The new models are good. The lighting is also like way better. Mm-hmm. Like, they just changed the lighting model. Man, I remember when I got into the Mechonis and just seeing how brilliant that was with all the metal work and the gold lighting. Like, that was just beautiful. But kind of keeping back to Metroid, right? Like, I'm also envisioning that similar to Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, how there was new content there. I could see new content here for this. And actually, there's actually a lot of different like enhanced games that we've seen Nintendo add new content for. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Pikmin 3 Deluxe with the epilogue with Olimar and Louis missions. I'm sure there's a few more. Can you guys think of any others that Nintendo's like, oh, let's add more content?
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe got a huge amount.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe got
they kind of like the first.
I didn't care for the battle mode personally, but it still was a lot of new content there.
The best battle mode in the entire series.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, maybe I've never been a fan of battle mode. I liked it on N64, but I was a child.
120 hours of battle mode in the first couple months of the game.
Wow. But anyways, the point is that there's a history of Nintendo going back to some games and adding actual new content there. Yeah. People might think of, oh, well, Nintendo doesn't do it with Zelda. No, but also that's kind of like the Zelda team thing, right? And keep in mind, Zelda is big. Like, people bought Skyward Sword HD. People are gonna buy Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. People bought Link's Awakening remake, which did they added some new content to that too, actually.
It's like the Dungeon Maker stuff.
Yeah, so it's not like they even with the Zelda team, they've done stuff when it's been more of a proper remake. So I think it's not crazy to think they could do this for Metroid Prime, especially since it's not coming with 2 or 3, and Prime 4 is obviously not coming out this year. Like, so with all that in mind, like, I think it could happen. And you were mentioning how you would like to see that. Well, one thing that comes to mind is maybe adding the Kraid battle that was cut early on in the game. They could do that. And maybe they can even put it inside Magmore Caverns, the one world, the one like province in Prime that doesn't have like a big area boss. Like, they could probably put it in there. Or maybe they change it in some other way that I'm not talking about. But there's potential to add a little bit of content there.
Well, Andres, I like that you mentioned bosses, because I actually feel like that's one area with the Prime remake that they could maybe shake things up, even if it's just making some of the boss scenes a bit more cinematic and more modernized, like beef up the boss fights in the game. Even if that was just like one area where we're gonna really modernize the boss fights in this game, make them intense and cinematic and just these epic encounters. Like, that's one area that they could really do a number of improvements that would make the game feel a lot more new and epic.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have the dual stick controls, and I imagine, like, even for the Wii controls, they didn't change anything in the trilogy to make it any different, did they? Because they've designed it around these kind of like more tanky, slower controls. You have to sit in one spot and aim. And with dual stick, you can just like run around and shoot at the same time. And I feel like they never really rebalanced the game for that. So they might go back.
The Wii version was a little easier than the GameCube version of Metroid Prime and 2, because with the Wii controls you can kind of just blitz through a little bit. Yeah. So I think they may sort of look to tweak that a little bit. That would be interesting, right? Like, if this is more than just a visual upgrade and they actually like change the AI and some of the world structure, that would be really cool. Now I feel like my expectations might be getting too high, but like that would be nice to see.
I'd love to see added just for fun, just for flavor. This isn't a game changer in any way, but like, we got the fusion suit in Prime. If you had fusion save data,
a dread suit. Yes.
Give us the dread suit. That would be rad.
That's honestly, if we get anything in terms of new content, that's probably the most likely, because it's easy. It's easy to do. I see that. You have Dread. You play Dread? Great. Here, you can unlock the Dread suit. That'd be really cool. Yeah. We could continue to talk about Metroid Prime here, but let's touch on one other thing, and then I have it in my head. Anyway, when do you think this is coming out? Do you think this is getting announced? And is it coming out in November? Earlier? Later? Is it going to come out next year? What do you think? I'm personally predicting it to be coming out this November. Not the same week as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but any other week, yeah, it could happen.
It doesn't seem like an earlier game to me. I'll say that.
No, I think the point is for it to be a part of Nintendo's holiday lineup. I mean, that's my take.
I'm leaning towards a November, December. I don't necessarily think it's Nintendo's big December game. Obviously, like, Metroid has a huge, base of fans that love it dearly. It's critically review really well, but it's not like a mega seller. So I could see it launching in the same month as Pokemon, or if it's a December game, launching in the same month as another game that's coming out.
So you think there could be another game in December?
Like, people are going to be like, oh man, it's either Pokemon or Metroid Prime. So.
Yeah,
I think they're
not exactly the same audience.
Yeah, there's a bit of. I mean, I'm gonna get both games, right? So there are those fans who do exist. There is overlap, but the overlap is mostly not substantial.
More hardcore.
I think it's cannibalizing, is what I'm getting at.
The other thing is that Metroid Prime is not like a long game. I mean, it's
only like 10 hours, 15, 20, maybe.
Maybe 15, 20 is more fair. Like 10 is if you know everything.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can get done.
Yeah.
8 to 10.
I mean, they may do some things to lengthen that. Maybe they add a boss rush mode. Maybe they do add a few other bosses or little sections. That could be the case. I'm not saying I wouldn't call Metroid Prime a short game. And I think because it came out in the early 2000s, that length of game was also
first-person shooter campaigns. 15 to 20 hours is pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that there's mention of Prime 2 and 3 at all coming at a later time down the road? Or do you think they're going to do Prime 1 remake / remaster just to get people pumped for Prime 4?
I think it's tricky. It's tricky for a lot of different reasons. I don't think they're going to announce 2 or 3. I just don't see there's no point unless they're coming out sometime early next year. Like I don't really see the point in that. I feel like they're going to become the next Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD, you know? And then one random day we're going to see them. Now, I would love to think that if Prime is coming out now, that means that Prime 4 is close. Like maybe next holiday close. But if that's the case, how do we get 2 and 3? You know, like do 2 and 3 come before Prime 4? Or do 2 and 3 come out next year and Prime 4 comes out the year after?
I kind of feel like we don't see 2 and 3 for a long time after, if at all, after Prime 4. I mean, Prime 1 is like the definitive Prime game. It's the one that is so critically loved. I feel like they put a lot of resources into beefing up and making a wonderful remake or remaster to introduce a Switch audience to a new generation of Metroid Prime. But I love 2 and 3. I know 2 is a little bit less fondly remembered. 3's loved a lot, but I don't know that they need to, or at least that they feel the need to. I think 1 is a good jumping in to get people excited for 4. But
I know some people. Go on.
I was just gonna say, I could be wrong, but I don't know that they like. I feel like the likelihood of getting 2 and 3 before 4 comes out just doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, I kind of feel like 4's got to be done pretty soon.
But I don't see them getting like if this is a full remake of the first Prime, you know, and they're really rebuilding everything. I don't see them doing that 2 more times.
No, yeah, I don't think that they'll ever. Well, maybe not, and not ever, but not within this next generation. I don't even think, maybe not even for the next Switch, to be fair, that they'll remake 2 and 3. I think if anything, they'll just port them over, because I do think they're a lot less.
They'll get like a Skyward Sword treatment. Like they might clean up the textures a little bit,
hoping
but
for like
nothing
more of a
major.
Wind Waker treatment, where they actually go in and do change the lighting engine, or like some really basic, easy things that they can do to make the game look a lot better. But nothing like even a Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Like I think they'll probably leave most of the models and everything the same, and just change things that are more like engine level tweaks to make the game look better, like having a new lighting engine, something that's more generically implemented.
Right. Yeah, nothing. They're not gonna like add new assets or anything like that. Yeah, I don't think so. And when they come, that's a debate. Like, so another angle to this, right, is there's a rumor. Actually, Nate the Hate was talking about this, that apparently there is going to be some sort of effort to bring multiple GameCube games to Switch Online. If that happens, and this isn't like a hard report by Nate the Hate, just for the record, like he has doubt, but it's something he's heard. So, you know, because rumor, take it with a grain of salt, but because it's not even like a proper reported rumor, maybe take it with 2 grains of salt or something. But just keep that in mind. But if there is some sort of effort to do so, granted, that's GameCube, not necessarily Wii, but I also feel like that could extend to Wii, just my own personal take. Like, I mean, if you're going to add GameCube games, you probably could also add Wii games, because they're basically the same hardware. So, you know.
Very similar, yes.
It's 2 GameCubes. That's the Wii.
Yeah, it's basically just an evolution of the GameCube hardware.
Yeah. And with the Joy-Cons, you know, that you can easily run Wii games. So anyway, point is, I think that we could, if they start adding like old GameCube and Wii games, but in a slightly enhanced way, I could see 2 and 3 coming on the system in that way, you know? And
definitely.
There you go. Like,
I agree with that totally. I think that's a great way for them to deliver that. You know, just port it to the Switch Online through GameCube and Wii service. which I think will come at some point. I think the Switch Online is going to carry over to the Switch's successor. So, what better way to get people excited to sign up again on their new system or keep their subscription than to continue to build that library?
And another interesting consideration to your point, though, is that because you were talking about how like you think that we'll just go straight to Prime 4.
Yeah.
They may even wait to see how this Metroid series takes off, because the Metroid series starts to approach maybe closer to Zelda levels. Let me rephrase. Closer to pre-Breath of the Wild Zelda levels.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Then they might see 2 and 3 as an opportunity to treat them like Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. But it kind of comes down to how successful the systems become, because maybe now they could just, do a basic sort of improvement and add them to the NSL Online at some point within the next couple of years. But maybe they see how good the Metroid series becomes. It's like, oh man, people love Prime 4 and 1. Let's go back to 2 and 3 and rework them a little bit, and maybe sell them individually for $60. Like,
sure.
Maybe that could become
could
a
probably
situation.
use a lot of quality of life improvements from what I hear about that game.
Well, the thing is, Trilogy HD made some of those quality of life improvements already. Well, with the controls and just they actually ease the difficulty a little bit. So there is a easier version of Prime 2 that exists already. So,
Sure.
I could kind of see that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Just want to point out, got Nate Esqueca, who's been a member for 9 months.
Hey.
Says, yo,
And you've
hello
had
there, buddy.
memberships open for 9 months already?
Time flies.
Or did you... Dang.
Time flies. It's crazy. Yeah. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for being a member. Cameron, I cut you off, though. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I think what you were saying about bringing it to the Switch Online service through GameCube and Wii catalog makes a lot of sense. And I think they're going to keep building on that. I mean, my kind of prediction is that like Game Boy Color will come to, or Game Boy / Game Boy Color will come to like the basics Nintendo Switch Online service. Game Boy Advance will come to the expansion pass alongside 64 and Sega Genesis. And then I see room for a GameCube Wii.
At some point, like that, yeah. Yeah, before
And,
I want to get to the Game Boy stuff.
I see a handheld coming to the basic and a handheld coming to the expansion pass.
Man, that's kind of savage, but you could be right.
Savage, but the good news is that like people who feel burned about the price of having to do the expansion pass,
They still get more content.
getting more content out of it. I think it's safe to assume that when the Splatoon 3 expansion comes, which it will, because that game's killing it right now.
Free on Nintendo Online.
It's going to be free.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we're going to continue to see. I'm sure the sequel to Breath of the Wild, there's a likelihood that it'll get DLC just like Breath of the Wild got DLC. And that very well may be free on the expansion pass. Like I said, I think this is going to carry over to the next system. Maybe it will all be under one subscription instead of separate chunks. But I think maybe for right now, they'll add to the old and add to the new.
Yeah, I want to talk about this Game Boy stuff, but I just kind of want to put a nice little ribbon on the Metroid stuff. Not saying we can't have overlap, but there's another point I wanted to get across, and then I want to kind of catch up with the chat real quick. I think some people are a little concerned about the idea of Prime coming out before Prime, with Prime coming out and then Prime 4 and skipping 2 and 3. Like, I think some people take issue with that because they're like, oh, we should be able to play through all the Prime games before playing Prime 4. But I'll raise you Metroid Dread, which is technically Metroid 5, and Fusion, which is Metroid 4, is not on the system. Neither is Samus Returns or Return to Samus, the two different versions of Metroid 2. Neither games are on the system. Yes, the original
Only
Metroid...
1 and 2 are.
1 and 3. 1 and 3.
Oh.
Yeah, the original Metroid via NSO and Super Metroid via NSO. Super Metroid is Metroid 3.
Super Metroid is 3?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because Return of Samus. Yeah.
So 2 and 4 are missing. Is yeah. But anyways, there's of the 5 like my brain. The chronology of the Metroid series of the 2D series. 2 of them are missing. 40%. So if they can do that for the 2D Metroid games, they can do that for the 3D ones as well. Like that's not going to stop them. But I'll also say, if you take a look at how they handled Metroid Dread, they gave us a history of the Metroid series. There was a developer diary. They had different like updates on the website every week or two. They gave us lore and information. They taught fans about the Metroid series leading up to Metroid Dread. They can do the same thing leading up to Prime 4. Prime 1 will be the introduction to that, and even if 2 and 3 don't come out between Prime 1 and 4, they can still talk about the history of the series once they start giving us all the good information for Prime 4. So I don't think it's necessary. Do I want 2 and 3? For sure. And I think eventually they're going to come. Like, it's just really just a question of timing. And if you look at how they handled Twilight Princess Moonbrook HD, we really have no clue.
We have no idea.
Real quick, Prime 4, does it get mentioned? What do you guys think?
I'm glad you brought that up.
If they announce, the Prime remake, I definitely think they have to at least say something about Prime 4, even if they don't show it. Like, they have to at least acknowledge its existence.
Sure.
But I kind of feel like we might see something from it, even if it's just like concept or just what Samus' suit looks like, or any kind of tiny little bit of something concrete. I think we will see something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was technically...
Thinking...
Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm kind of thinking that the first trailer is going to be at earliest Game Awards this year, at latest E3 next year. If E3 doesn't...
Do you think there's a possibility of like a tiny snippet, just like a 3-5 second clip?
I would be surprised if there was a concept art or like a quick maybe like a snippet, and they say, we look forward to showing you the full reveal of this very soon, or something, something like
in the future.
To be like, it's coming, just be a little bit more patient with us.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're gonna see like a minute long trailer or whatever.
Yeah, no.
With like a release window, not till the earliest the Game Awards it's like, I'm surprised we haven't gotten anything Metroid there yet. It seems like such a good avenue for that.
They keep predicting it, and it keeps not happening.
Yeah, I think at earliest it'll be there. At latest it'll be at E3 time next year.
I look forward to my Game Awards predictions. Spoiler, it's going to be a lot less than all previous years. But it's not going to be nothing. But we'll save that. We'll save that for another time. I'm actually kind of in agreement with you guys. I think that they need to mention Prime 4 if they're announcing Metroid Prime HD. It's kind of like the announcement of Metroid Prime HD is going to be the beginning of the Prime 4 marketing cycle, I feel. And I mean, Prime 1 in and of itself is going to be marketing for Prime 4. It's like, man, if this is how Prime 1 can look on Switch, what can they do with Prime 4? Like, that's going to be the thought on a lot of gamers' minds. So you may not even need to really show off Prime 4, but I also have a hard time seeing them announce Prime 1 and not even mention Prime 4. So I think Prime 4 is getting a mention. But the question is, what
especially
level?
If they're using the same engine.
Right. What level of a mention, though? What do they say exactly? Yeah. Do they just say, hey, development's going well, don't worry? They already did that with Metroid Dread last year. Are they going to just do it again?
Yeah.
They might. They might. But I feel like they got to give us something a little bit beyond just development's going well. And I don't know what that is, because I also don't think we're ready for a trailer. Like, could we get a trailer? Yes, we could. But if we're getting a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer during this direct, if we're getting Twilight Princess and Moonbrook HD, and we're getting Prime HD, like, I just don't know how much Nintendo's going to do. Obviously, Zelda's not Metroid, but if they're going to be like Metroid Prime 4 and Breath of the Wild 2 are kind of like these two big, like, ambitious projects Nintendo's been working on, to give full-length trailers for both in the direct, I just don't. I feel like that's a little hard to see happening, especially if for Metroid you're gonna be showing up Metroid Prime 1. Like, you don't want to overshadow Prime 1 too much by fully showcasing Prime 4. So whatever it is, it has to be more on the teaser side of things. But how much of a teaser? Like, do they even show us footage, or do they just show us maybe a frame, or is it maybe not even anything visual per se? What if it's just kind of like a few extra words? Like, it could be something like that,
No.
Did you say
I'm
no?
assuming that the logo is going to look different than the one that we got when it was first teased.
Maybe that's it.
It's no longer even being developed by what was it? Bandai Namco. It was rumored to be.
Yeah.
So I imagine that the Metroid Prime 4 logo will not look like that.
But I think we're getting closer to what it might be. Yeah. I can see what's his name? Why is this slipping my mind? Tanabe.
Yeah.
Tanabe coming out on stage and talking briefly about Metroid. It's like, hey, right now we development for Metroid Prime 4 is under the way, right? We're aiming for a 2023 release. Maybe they could say something like that. We don't have much to say right now, and they might show like maybe a slightly updated logo, something like that, and say, hey, we're aiming for a 2023 release. So it's a little bit more substantial than, hey, development's going well, and then be like, but until then, take a look at this, and then that's when they show Prime 1 HD. Like, I think it could be something like that, where they actually say something about the game that gives a little bit more, but it's still nothing super substantial where it would overshadow Prime 1.
Right, or even the logo covering the screen, you've got him superimposed in front. They're doing the green screen. You get the logo, everyone's like, oh crap, Metroid Prime 4. And he's like, hey, Metroid Prime 4, we're so close to being ready to show you. But they
might not even tell us it's coming out next year, but they'll say more details next year.
Yeah,
they'll confirm that they're going to reveal the game next year.
Yeah, we're getting really close to the reveal of Metroid Prime 4, and we're so excited to show you guys really soon. But for now, take a look at this, and then it kicks into the Prime 1 remake, and it's beautiful and showing details and updates.
In what was it, last year, 2021 is when they said for Zelda that we will see something by the end of the year again. Like, you're gonna see the game again this year. Like, they actually straight confirmed that.
I think in 2021 they said we get more details later this year, and we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, we did at E3. We got that one trailer with the showing off the sky area.
No, what I'm saying is that I don't remember the timing of things. My impression was that that's when they said we would get more details this year after they gave us that trailer, and we never got more details.
No. It was before. It was when they were showing off Skyward Sword HD.
Oh, okay.
That's when they said that they were going to show us more details.
You're right.
Of the year.
You're right. They did say that. Yeah.
So it's a very similar situation here. So they could very well do the same thing.
Yeah, and that's
but.
It's more than just saying development's going well. It gives us a little bit of a timeline. And maybe that's what it is. They're just going to give us a little bit more of a timeline. Say, hey, we have details coming sometime next year or soon. But until then, here's this. Yeah. So slightly more than a mention, but it's just like a mention plus.
Of that caliber.
Yeah. If we get more, whew. That'll be amazing. But Prime 1 is gonna be making me happy. I'm gonna be flipping metaphorical tables tomorrow when we see Prime 1. So but let's come back to the chat, and then we'll get to the Game Boy stuff, because I do want to talk about that. So I'm gonna try
the chat. I'm gonna be right back.
Sure. I'm gonna try and speed through this just because I want to kind of catch up here. The chat's been pretty active, and I don't want to skip what you guys are saying. So let's see here. All right. Hello there, T. Elijah Morrison. How are you? Jaden Drysdale, do you guys think that the name for Breath of the Wild 6 will be revealed this direct? I don't want to jump into the Zelda topic yet, but my answer is yes. We're gonna get to that though. I mean, I literally had a whole discussion about it yesterday, actually. So after this podcast, you can check that out. I had that discussion with Shifty. It's on the channel. Leo Aguiar, I am hyped for the surprises that we never expect. I am hoping for more than one remake remaster, aka Metroid Prime or Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Well, there is the rumored F-Zero GX remaster, which we'll also talk about later. Maybe that's announced. Child Trudell Atomy, if you see nothing of that, you may feel disappointed. It would be weird because what else is there? There's so many things that can be shown beyond what we're going to talk about tonight. A guy you don't know. Hey there guys, do you think we'll see Advance Wars 1 2 Reboot Camp in the Direct, or is the game just doomed to be forgotten? So I don't think the game is doomed to be forgotten. Nintendo has a completed quality game just waiting to be released. They're gonna release the game. But the question is, when they're gonna release the game. And that We don't know. My personal take, though, is it's going to come out early next year. And I could be off on that. Maybe they come out with it this year. But I guess where I'm coming from with this is that because, as Cameron brought up earlier, we're getting Bayonetta 3, Mario Rabbids, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet between October and November. And we're just coming off the release of Splatoon 3 last Friday. If Nintendo then also announces Metroid Prime HD to come out also in November or early December, and then we also get confirmation of Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD, and if my prediction is right, they come out in just a couple of weeks, which may not be the case, but hypothetically, if that is the case, it is my prediction. From my perspective, if we're getting all that, where do we fit in Advance Wars? Maybe Advance Wars could be a December release. If Prime is coming out in November. Like, I could see that maybe happening, right? Or maybe if the Zelda games aren't coming out this year, maybe you could fit Advance Wars into late September, early October. That's another possibility. But because I think we're getting the Zelda games this year, I know I'm insane, and I also think we're getting the Metroid Prime remake this year, along with everything else that's confirmed, I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards it coming out early next year. I think it's something Nintendo could announce for maybe a January release or a February release. Something smaller that would be great for Nintendo fans, but wouldn't be like, you know, something that could take away from, like, say, the sales of Breath of the Wild 2 in March. Like, kind of like, you know, think of it like this. Like, do you think Nintendo would release 3D Mario in February and then 3D Zelda in March? No, but they might release Advance Wars in February and 3D Zelda in March. You know what I mean? Like, they maybe spacing out big games with smaller releases. So I could kind of see Advance Wars being announced for that winter time frame, which does technically include December. So maybe they squeeze it in there. But that's kind of where I'm seeing. I see it falling somewhere between December and February, and I think maybe more likely January or February. I mean, do you guys agree with me, or do you feel differently about when we could be seeing Advance Wars actually coming out?
I think a game like that, it's best to release it when a ton of the games aren't really releasing. And January, February is kind of that time of the year where smaller projects really do kind of get released more often, and they thrive there, because a lot of the big projects just don't get released around then. So I am leaning towards January and February. I'm kind of leaning towards that, to be honest, for most titles, because that is where we are focusing on for this Direct, so we do have to keep that in mind. So odds are, if they're talking about the Direct, it is then. So for a multitude of factors, I do think January, February makes more sense than this year. But December as well is a slow period, so it's not impossible they could put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if we don't get like a big December game announcement, we could possibly see Advance Wars in that window. But like you guys said, like January, February just makes a lot of sense for a smaller title like that. I know a lot of people are really excited for Advance Wars. I was a big fan on the Game Boy Advance, so I can't wait to get my hands on it. But yeah, I think like Brandon said, like a title like that generally succeeds the best during kind of like the slower time after the holidays, after a lot of those big juggernaut titles just smash through the...
Like, I feel like it might get swallowed if it comes out right now. Like, conceivably, they could shadow drop it tomorrow, have it come out in September. Like, they could.
If it's gonna come out soon, I feel like a shadow drop tomorrow would probably be better than dropping it in November, December.
Yeah, but it's also like it's not really an eShop game, right? It's gonna be a physical release. I think it's cheaper. I think it'd be $50. So it's not like, it's not like a $10 eShop game, but it's also not a full price title either. Like, Nintendo does have some bit of a lower expectation for this game, right? I don't know. I think it would be weird to just shadow drop it, because it's going to be a physical release is my main point. But it could come out in a few weeks. But I think that short of a window works for more known games, like 3D All-Stars, which is like the only time it's happened, and I could see it happening for the Zelda games. But it may be early October, but more likely, I think we are looking at somewhere between December to February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think next year is more likely.
Yeah.
Plus, it's like, obviously that's been a sensitive release with like the state of the world.
Yeah.
Nintendo really likes to tread lightly with that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I mean, they're not even streaming it in the UK right now because of the Queen.
Yeah.
So
we were worried they were going to delay the Direct because of the Queen passing.
Yeah.
Um,
So like, if anything, I think just because of like the state of the world, like I can see Nintendo just being like, we're just gonna release this next year. It's too soon right now.
maybe, and there's just a lot coming out right now. So, and
Keep it
ultimately, I
completely
just wanted,
separated from the year that everything started.
as much as I want to play Advance Wars as fast as possible, because of the amount of games coming out, I don't even think I'll have time to. And I want the game to succeed. So I actually would prefer it if the game were to come out in January and February. So maybe I'm a little biased here, but I'm only biased because I want the game to sell well. So I think that's a healthy bias in terms of figuring out when it's the best time for it to come out, because that's also what Nintendo wants. They want the game to perform well. They may feel it could perform well and by shadow dropping it, but we've already been over my take and our take, so I'm not going to continue to beat this horse that's dead. So moving on.
The horse died, guys. Let it go.
Yeah. Marcos Martins. How about an Earthbound remake, or maybe finally Mother 3? That would be cool.
You know, like, predicting Mother at this point is...
Listen, someday there's gonna be something for the Earthbound series.
Yeah.
Someday it will happen. The day will come.
One day.
But when that day will be,
Walkers.
I don't know. I may have children when that day comes.
Yeah.
Or
I
you're old man.
Walker. I told you.
I told you.
Mother 3 would release.
Any day now. I'm sure this was all Reggie's doing.
Back in my heyday, it was rumored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love an Earthbound remake. That would be so rad. And there's so many cool people have talked about like using like the Link's Awakening remake art style, or maybe
that
a
would
claymation
or it fits so well.
Diorama.
That would be kind of creepy, but
would
yeah.
just suit that series so well.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that so much. That'd be amazing.
Earthbound is one of my favorite series, like, on the... Wait, released for the SNES, right?
You know, it'd be really cool. What if
RPG
Nintendo
like
partnered with Square to do it?
Yeah, be rad.
Considering what they do they remake so many of their old RPGs. They know what they're doing with that. Now, they probably would use one of those more sprite-based styles.
I don't know if I want Square to do it, to be honest. Some of their remakes of old classic pixel art titles don't always go well. They either go into the point to where they do an amazing job and they do like an HD 2D remake, which I'm not sure how that style would work with Earthbound specifically. I think they would have to do something very different from what they do with the other titles, but something with, HD 2D, because that's a very broad type, so they can do something different. But other titles, they just if it's not that, they completely drop the ball every single time. I don't know why. So,
I think
maybe not Square.
If I could get anything
idea
from Square with Nintendo, it would be a sequel to Super Mario RPG. That would be. That would
be the stuff of dreams.
I've seen people working on like fan remakes on Twitter, and they're very impressive.
Yeah.
I like fan remakes where actually stick to the art style and actually look like they could be a real project, and not those like Unreal Engine 4 where they just like throw Sonic and Mario models into an environment.
We'll see. Let's continue on the chat here. Alright. So Oompa Moyo, Metroid Prime 4, 2023 or 2024. Based off our little discussion we just had, I think a lot of us inherently think Prime 4 is coming out holiday 2023.
I'm of two minds.
Huh?
So I'm of two minds.
Yeah.
So I can believe either one.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat as you. I'll tell you what. If Prime 4 comes out 2024, we do get 2 and 3 next year. But I think that most likely. Okay, I say most likely. In my head, I say most likely that it comes out holiday 2024. And I don't know. I can see it can go, honestly, can go either way. But the reason why I feel like there's a decent chance it comes out next year is because I feel like Nintendo has sort of a bit of a plan here. I think that plan, and Brandon, you actually said this plan like a year and a half ago or something. Like you were like, you know what? I think Metroid, the 2D Metroid that isn't announced, like before Metroid Dread was even announced, like maybe the beginning of 2021. You're like, I think maybe we get Metroid Dread at the end of this year, Metroid Prime remake the year after. You probably said Trilogy HD at the time, but and then Prime 4 the year after that, right? And now we're in that second year from that plan, and supposedly we're getting Prime HD announced tomorrow, right? And if that happens, there is this 3-year plan. The final piece of that would be Prime 4. I think
piece of the puzzle,
and it makes sense because think about it like this: if Prime HD is coming out now, why are they positioning it to come out now? They have so many other things that could come out now. Why does that have to be Metroid? And I think it would make sense to come out with Metroid now because they want to keep Metroid fresh in the minds of gamers after Metroid Dread last holiday. And if you're trying to do that where you have a consecutive Metroid releases, it's because you want to keep it going and you're leading up to something else the year after. So unless 2 and 3 are coming out next year, Prime 4 is going to be like that big thing for
I think so.
For next year, towards the end of the year, I think.
I feel like you don't go 2 years of big Metroid releases and then just the third year nothing. Like I feel like you don't take the gap year, right?
Yeah.
So at the very
if anything,
least,
you maybe would have waited
release.
a year after Dread, come with Prime HD next year, and then Prime 4, right?
Yeah.
So but again, this is all assuming it comes out this holiday, right? It is still rumor until it's confirmed.
This is also just the logic that makes sense in our heads and the way we think it is the best, not necessarily what they have planned or what they can make, because the game's got to be done for it to release next year. That might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah, another interesting point though is that they may not want to show off footage of Metroid Prime 4 for the Switch, because it may be the case that Prime 4 is being developed more for Switch 2 in mind.
I imagine that the Switch version will 100% run and look great. I could see a world where the Switch 2 version looks a lot better. It comes out with a 4K 60, straight out of the box. If they do a dual release like they do with like Twilight Princess for the GameCube and Wii, or Breath of the Wild. Or if they just like immediately have a patch for it, like day one for the system, I could see that, but I don't think it's gonna be something where it's like not that great on the base console, or it looks like so much better on the next gen console. Just because I don't think we're gonna see that in general for cross-platform releases. It's not really the case.
Yeah. So I mean, but if you put a gun to my head, I'll predict Prime 4 to come out holiday 2023 as opposed to 2024, but it's hit or miss, pun intended, since in this pun that I had a gun to my head. But anyway, moving on. Joycey J, hi. I'm hyped without expectation. I've decided to be happy with everything Nintendo shows off, and I think I'm in a very similar boat to you. I think that's a healthy way to go into this direct. Hello there, Upper Nimbus. How are you? Anonymous. It's so weird that it's been more than 20 years since a 3D Donkey Kong, but maybe Nintendo needs to release it on new hardware because jungles are graphics intensive, dang leaves and branches, canopies everywhere. We need a PS5 for the Donkey Kong game Nintendo wants to make. Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think that that's the case. I think it's just they only had the one 3D Donkey Kong. It was not received very well, and even like the 2D Donkey Kongs haven't been like super consistent. So I think it's just one of those things where it just was a one and done thing, and it wasn't really meant to be like this big new 3D Donkey Kong series. Yeah, it was made by a company that that was one of their last games they made.
It was kind of based off the Banjo-Kazooie engine, right? Like, so, it's not like a Nintendo thing, right? Even though it was for Nintendo, it wasn't like a Nintendo thing. Now, obviously, they were all heavily inspired by Mario 64, but
most games are.
Yeah.
I could actually see them before they would chase like that big open 3D Donkey Kong game, I could see them doing something more akin to 3D World with like a little bit more 3D movement in a kind of point A to point B style Donkey Kong game, or even the new Kirby game.
Fun fact.
A to B, but you have a lot more freedom of where you can go within the confines of the level.
The levels are more like grounded in a world.
Fun fact, Brandon and I actually talked about how the next Kirby before Forgotten Land was shown off, that it was going to be like an isometric 3D World style kind of game. That's exactly what it ended up being. Now, I think though, because of that, I feel like there increases the chance that they'll do the exact same thing for Donkey Kong. Now, HAL isn't internal Nintendo technically, I think. So
is it not?
It's weird. They do their own thing.
It's like Game Freak.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like Game Freak, where they pretty much only make Nintendo games, but there's not always. HAL Laboratory. I don't know.
Honestly, I had no clue.
I'm not sure.
I don't think I've ever seen their logo on a non-Nintendo game, but
it's been affiliated with Nintendo. I don't think. Yeah, I think it's technically separate, but it effectively is Nintendo. But anyway, Then going back to the idea of like Donkey Kong and doing something 3D, like I've always sort of envisioned maybe taking some cues from Tarzan. I think that could be really cool. I think they should do something different, right? Like if you're gonna make a 3D Donkey Kong, don't make it 3D Mario, but Donkey Kong instead. Like it's gotta feel like its own thing, and I think that's what's key. Now, how they do that exactly, I mean, we'll find out. They gotta
focus
someday.
on power and momentum over speed and agility. I think Donkey Kong would be more slow to accelerate, but once he's going, he's a force.
Power, momentum.
Whereas Mario is more nimble and quicker acceleration.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about Mario is that you're actually able to change your momentum pretty quickly. Yeah.
Donkey Kong probably can't.
No. Yeah. But that could be cool though, because you can build up some serious power and do some cool stuff like that. I think a game kind of focusing on that would be interesting. I mean, you think about some of the Donkey Kong games, they kind of did that, right? Like you look at Jungle Beat, for example, the Retro Studios versions of Donkey Kong. Like there was half behind some of that movement. So, I mean, even Donkey Kong 64, like they had different characters, and there were certain characters that had more weight behind what they did.
Yeah.
Ryan, I appreciate that you appreciate my hoodie. Thank you. Ooh, this is a fun question. Colin Perkins Taylor. Will Breath of the Wild 2 start or end the show? So, my take is this. I think the direct is going to be bookended with Zelda and Metroid. I'm not sure which one comes first and which one comes last. If I'm going to guess, that they open the show with Metroid and they close the show with Zelda. Although, when I think more about that, how will that sort of fit into the Prime 4 teaser?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of makes me wonder, maybe.
Also, I feel like Zelda, I feel like they want to show more than just, a trailer to close the show, though, because then they can't... I mean, they could expand on it further after that, but typically with, closer trailers, it's usually, a cold close, where they just, leave the trailer hanging, right? Don't really do a ton of explanation afterwards. And I feel like Breath of the Wild, they may want to go into a deeper dive on some of the things they show. Maybe not, though. Maybe won't show as much as I'm hoping. Who knows?
It'd be cool if they opened the show with F-Zero GX.
That would
be dope.
It just catches you off guard,
I think Breath of the Wild isn't an opener. I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be the last big trailer of the show, but I predict that there's going to be one more thing after Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Really?
I kind of feel that way too, to be honest.
I feel like there's going to be one more thing.
What is that one more thing? What is that one more thing? Tell me. I need to know. What could you possibly think they would end the show with beyond Breath of the Wild 2? Like, it's one thing if Breath of the Wild 2 opens the show, and you can have something that's kind of cool, but not as cool as Breath of the Wild 2 end the show. Like, I get that. But to suggest that Breath of the Wild 2 would be the second to last thing in the show, what could they possibly follow up Breath of the Wild 2 with?
I think there are a lot of options, to be fair.
I know, I'm gonna... Wait, what'd you say, Brandon?
I think there are several options I have in mind, but you go.
I have one. I don't know. I feel
gone.
like you guys are gonna think I'm out of my mind. But for some reason, I just have a feeling that this could be a possibility. I think it's gonna feel like the show's closing out. We're gonna get and I'm sure we'll talk more about Breath of the Wild tonight. But I'm sure I think we're gonna get a release date and title for the game, and then it's gonna feel like the show's closing out, and then there's one more thing, and I think you're gonna see Mario running into frame. I think there's chance for 2D Mario. I'm not saying the next big 3D, the successor to Odyssey, but I think there's a big chance that we could be seeing the next 2D Mario game. I know we got Bowser's Fury, but I think that was like a special case. I don't think people should consider that, oh, that was the 2D Mario that we got. Obviously the Bowser's Fury expansion was anything but a 2D,
It's 3D
expansion.
Mario. Yeah.
I think where's the next 2D Mario? I know this is something that's been on our minds. I know we've discussed it on the podcast at least a couple times together when I've been on. I think a full 3D Mario, the successor to Odyssey, is too big for the September Direct and would be announced properly at like an E3. But I think this is a good time for.
If they're gonna talk about Zelda, they probably won't talk about Mario, 3D Mario at least.
Right.
But there's something else where they could talk about.
There is a possibility. I know it sounds crazy. I know that's like like a dream direct getting Metroid, Zelda, and Mario, but we've gotten Metroid, Zelda, and Mario in an E3 direct before.
Yeah, 2017.
And it doesn't have to be a game for Mario though.
What's that?
What if they end the direct not with the Mario game, but with the Mario movie trailer?
That is the only thing that I agree.
Mario movie trailer, yeah.
That's the only thing that I will accept as a proper follow-up to the Breath of the Wild 2 movie. As much as I would love a 2D Mario, and by the way, I actually am predicting 2D Mario is going to get revealed tomorrow. I'm probably wrong, but, it's part of my prediction. Like, I think there's a good chance because it makes sense to have a 2D Mario to line up with the Mario movie. I'm not saying day and date, but close. Like, I think we got to get some Mario love, mainline Mario love in 2023, and I think starting off a 2D Mario makes sense. But the Mario movie trailer, which I also expect to happen in this direct, I think that's a good closer. That's a great closer. There's nothing to say afterwards. You just give us the trailer. There you go. Like they could, and they could have.
See, that's why I think Breath of the Wild won't close. It could open because they can expand upon it if they open. But I feel like they gotta expand upon what they show for Breath of the Wild, and it's just not a closer. So I could see an opening, or I could see one more thing after they talk about Zelda, but not a close.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, my biggest fear with the new 2D Mario is that it's new Super Mario Bros. Switch. I don't want. Stop doing new Super Mario.
No. I am 100% certain they did not wait 10 years between new Super Mario Bros. U and if they announce it now, actually it'd be like 11 by the time it releases, I think, for them to use like another new or like not do something that's completely like radically different. This has been way too long. I feel like the reason it's been so long is because they knew, like with Zelda, that they need to go back to the drawing board and do something completely new. And I feel like they're gonna come out with something that's completely unique and a new fun concept for 2D Mario. I feel like they're gonna go as creative and as ambitious as they do with the 3D with the 2D. Otherwise, what's the point?
I mean, I think you look at some of the 3D Mario games, they've had some cool 2D Mario elements. Like, remember Galaxy with, like, the gravity mechanics, right? Or, like, in Odyssey, like...
straight up 2D segments.
Yeah, like, it's straight up 2D segments with the perspective shift. Like, that's some cool stuff. Obviously, if it's a 2D Mario, you can't really have too much perspective shifting. Unless it's not entirely 2D. I mean, you look at how you remember Paper Mario for the Wii? they kind of played around with that, the camera shift. So that's something to consider. Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think it's time for 2D Mario, and I definitely think it's time for a Mario movie trailer. I'll be actually surprised if we don't get the Mario movie trailer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, like as far as like hype level goes, like a 2D Mario doesn't come close to what Zelda is able to generate. But from a sales perspective, when you think of the 2D Mario games, when you think of like what New Super Mario Brothers Wii did and the Wii U one, like they're crazy sellers. May not be
even
like
the port
factor
to the Switch.
Yeah, it may not be crazy hype factor, but those games sell, and people love them. So I just hope we get cool art style. I mean, there's a lot of companies doing really cool stuff with 2D platformers now. Obviously, 3D World was a nice kind of innovation on the 2D Marios. We got the new Kirby we just talked about. Tropical Freeze is a really cool and innovative 2D platformer. Rayman Legends is another one that does a lot of really cool stuff. Beautiful art style. Some really cool rhythm-based levels that they throw in there that are a lot of fun. So I'd like to see Nintendo kind of...
Rayman Legends is probably my... Sorry, I was just going to say Rayman Legends is probably one of my favorite 2D platformers in recent years. But go on.
It's fantastic. I'd love to see Nintendo go crazy with the 2D game like they did with 3D with Odyssey. Try something wild and out there. I mean, New Super Mario Brothers Wii U was, it was a good 2D Mario, but why didn't we get more stuff like Starry Night? That level was so cool. Just having a weird kind of abstract level like that. So I don't know. Whatever they do,
it was very basic Mario.
I hope it's not, oh cool, it's another 2D Mario, and oh crap, did you see that new 2D Mario? It looks crazy. So
I don't want such the new series has such a bland art style in my opinion. It's very generic. So you got your grass plain levels, and then you got the desert level, and then you got the water level. It's all very basic stuff.
Yeah, I want a space level.
I want something more unique.
I want a painterly level. Yeah, that'd be cool. We've seen it before, but I wouldn't mind it again. They'll probably do a dessert level. But a dessert level in 2D would be kind of fun though. You can imagine jumping on cream cakes and fruits and stuff. That might be cool.
Yeah, give us a Mario multiverse where you're going through different dimensions and all these different weird abstract versions of Mario. It doesn't have to be the same Mushroom Kingdom stuff.
You know, it'd be really cool. Just an idea. What if it's a 2D Mario, but it's a 2D Mario exploring the Nintendo universe.
I love that. Yeah.
So there'll be a Zelda. There'll be a Zelda area. There'll be a Kirby area, Yoshi area. Yoshi wouldn't be too much of a tangent there. A Donkey Kong area.
No.
They would be teases. Yeah. I don't think that's gonna happen. It's just an idea throughout there. Watch it be called Super Smash Brothers.
No. I would love though just unique styles in general. I mean, I love the worlds in Mario Odyssey because they feel so much like Mario, but at the same time so completely unique and different than anything we see Mario do. So,
my biggest bummer with Mario Odyssey is we get that. It's like a Dark Souls world.
Yeah,
and it's
love it. The Lost Kingdom.
I love that Mario game where it's in this Dark Souls gothic fantasy universe.
Imagine that. Oh, that'd be a cool area to explore in a 2D Mario. Yeah, I would love that. That would be. Oh, I would love it because it would be almost like Castlevania-esque kinda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
We got some ideas cooking here. That's a good one. I love that. Yeah. It would be another cool one. What if they just Laura is all right, where did Bowser come from, right? You could just do a default lava level, but what if they were no, let's actually think about where the Koopas came from. Let's make a world based off that. That would be cool, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do a wizard world for Kamek and stuff too.
Ooh, yeah, they could do that. They could also have a 2D Mushroom Kingdom that you explore, actually go through the Toad Town and stuff.
Yeah, I would like it if they made like more expanded Mario universe stuff. Like
since we're thinking more about it, imagine there's like a Mario Kart world.
Oh,
yeah, like you're going through like like when they have the pit stops, and
they can have those be like very speedy, fast levels.
Yeah,
you actually like running through the tracks and stuff. That'd be fun.
I like this.
Make it play more like Sonic almost.
I like this. Watch like there's some like developers watching this conversation, and they're like, "Oh, that's a really good idea.
Write this down.
We should have done that. Okay, let's delay 2D Mario so it's not in the direct, but we're gonna employ these ideas 3 years from now."
What have we done?
Yeah, I feel like Mario's like at its best when it's like when it's like kind of the fish out of the water form. You think like Galaxy and Odyssey and the Paper Mario series, like he's going into all these weird lands.
Mario 64, they went to all kinds of wacky places in that game.
Odyssey did
Mario 64 was anything but generic.
Yeah, Odyssey did it great because you got all these cool different lands and worlds.
Remember that area that was like almost like a town from real life, but not? They had the changing water levels.
But what was cool with Odyssey is you get all these cool, exciting worlds, and then at the end you get to go back to the Mushroom Kingdom, like Mario 64.
Yeah.
Like that was so sick to do that.
I love using the Mario 64 skin. Like I saw the low poly model.
Oh, here's another one. 2D New Donk City.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot. I think when we actually think about it, there's actually a lot of material there, and they each would could bring like different like unique sort of spins in terms of gameplay too.
And eventually this will all lead into a Mario Maker 3 that's actually more unique, because I feel like Mario Maker 2 is like Mario Maker 1.2, not even like a 1.5.
Yeah, here or there.
That game really died quick, but I feel like if they actually use like unique art styles, like imagine if there was a Galaxy like mode in that, or like a new Donk stuff that they added, like actually cool stuff.
It'd be super cool.
But yeah, it's just I feel like 2D Mario in general has been lacking, not only in the mainline series but also Mario Maker 2 was kind of disappointing in general.
So
but maybe tomorrow we'll see a renaissance of sorts.
A renaissance. Okay. Anyway, I feel like I didn't specifically answer Colin Perkins Taylor's question about when we see Breath of the Wild 2 at the opening or the close. I know we kind of talked about it. I just want to like put a little ribbon on it. I think when I think about it, I think what makes the most sense is that Breath of the Wild 2 is in the later part of the show, because typically that's when we see Zelda announcements. They're always in the later part of the show. So either it's the very end or it's right before the end, to the point of both Cameron and Brandon, and we get like a Mario movie trailer or something like that, or 2D Mario, which would be amazing. But I feel like we get 2D Mario be announced like in the middle of the direct, and it's different enough from the Mario movie trailer that they could be two separate things. They don't have to announce them next to each other. Just the fact that they both exist and they both come out in the same year will be enough cross promotion in and of itself. Like that'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
But moving on here, I'm gonna check. There's a couple things I'm checking on the chat. There's a lot of conversation. I'm not gonna be able to get to all of it, but I'm just like checking the ads. DOS, here's hoping for MGS collection on the Switch. Metal Gear Solid, that would be pretty solid. Yeah, I know. I'm here all day. Wario's cousin, thoughts on Call of Duty Modern Warfare rumored to come to Switch?
Modern Warfare 2.
If we're talking about like a remaster of an old Call of Duty, I can see that.
The new one? No. It's just not gonna work. Like, I feel like they're not gonna want to release a 30 FPS, like 540p to 720p version of this game that barely functions and is in no way actually like fair to the people playing on the Switch. I mean, they might. I mean, Fortnite and Apex did it, so who knows? You know, they could do it, but I don't know. Do people want this?
Yeah. People want Call of Duty. You kidding me?
I don't know. You know, maybe they'll do it, but I mean, this is Activision, so the amount of Switch support that they want to give is varies heavily.
There's something I forgot to announce at the beginning of the show. I will be live streaming the direct tomorrow.
I will be at work.
I'm taking a half day. So, first
I'll
half
be
of the
really
day.
tired, but watching it as it airs.
Yeah, so stay
I'll
tuned,
open
guys.
it,
There,
work
there
for an
will be a
hour.
stream tomorrow morning, probably. I technically got permission to take a half day. So if I don't, it's because
Maybe I'll technically get permission to take a half day.
yeah.
Nah.
Anyways, yeah. So we'll probably be streaming tomorrow for sure. We're not done with the show yet. I'm just realized I never mentioned it. So there we go. Looking through the chat here. You know what? I think it's time to move on to discussion on just our predictions, right? Cameron, you know, I kind of cut off your point about, you know, NSO expansion, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say my thoughts on it. I definitely feel like Nintendo wants to continue to expand Nintendo Online stuff. I'm not convinced we're getting Game Boy Color yet, just because I feel like it's something we've kind of wanted every year and then it doesn't happen. And we just got N64. But because that's more for the higher tier, I do think, to your point, that it does make sense to have something for the lower tier. So it could happen. Like it's definitely like in the cards. I'm just not like committed towards it happening, you know?
Right.
But it's absolutely, if it happens tomorrow, I'm not going to be shocked about it. Like that's definitely, it makes sense.
Yeah, it might not be a tomorrow thing. I feel like it's definitely coming. Put it this way: if we don't get an upgrade to the Switch Online by E3 time of next year, I'll be shocked. I'm like, huh. So I think it's coming. It might not be next year. They might want to just like focus on, you know, specific titles that are coming to the Switch over the holiday and early into next year.
Yeah. We usually get the upgrades for NSO around the September time, because that's when they need to sort of have people re-up for the NSO expansion, right? So I could see it as late as next year, right? But I think by next year, for sure, by next September, we do get an announcement of some sort of expansion to NSO.
Yeah. But I feel like Game Boy Color, at least to add to the base thing, no extra charge. I think it fits. I think it's probably what's coming next, unless they decide they want to do something bigger and do GameCube. But I feel like GameCube and Wii is going to be later, because I feel like that's going to be another tier.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll throw in a bonus. We got Sega Genesis with the last tier. Maybe if they're like, we're doing a third tier, it's going to cost a lot more, so we're doing GameCube, Wii, and Dreamcast, and people would be stoked for that. A lot of Dreamcast fans who would love to have Dreamcast games.
Honestly, I think people would be pissed if there was a third tier, an even more expensive tier.
So.
I don't see it I don't see that happening.
I feel like at this point they're already putting like a ton of free DLCs and things to make the current tier worth it. So the idea of having another tier doesn't make sense to me, but eventually they'll need to add another system to the higher tier, right?
I actually could see this. What if instead there's not like another tier, but actually they just release like GameCube and Wii games on the eShop,
like individually.
Like they're like individually. You purchase them individually. If you don't have Nintendo Online, you don't have to. You can buy them. But if you have the Plus membership, right, you get them at a discount.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that.
That would be preferred as a consumer. That would be preferred. I'd love to, I love the virtual console. Yeah. I think it was.
There's another element that I think is to be considered about this. It's because one, the Switch doesn't have like unlimited storage space, right? And technically, you can play any of the N64 games or the Super Nintendo games, you can play all the NSO games without being connected to the internet, because they're all on there already. If you start adding
They're very small games, though.
They are very small games, but that's my point. As we start to add more and more advanced games, especially if they're like somewhat.
Go on.
I was just gonna say, especially if they're somewhat enhanced, like that's gonna take up space. Now, GameCube and Wii don't take up a lot of space, but they take up more space than N64.
Don't get in the gigabytes.
Right.
Yeah, the N64, you're dealing with like megabytes and kilobytes, And you know, GameCube and Wii, you're starting to deal with hundreds of megabytes and gigabytes, and that's a whole different territory when you're dealing with a 32 to 64 gigabyte storage capacity.
So it makes more sense to maybe allow people to kind of pick and choose what they want for that. If they want to be able to download them all, they can, but they're just going to have to get a really big SD card. You know, like, I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love that. I'd be all for that. But I just don't see Nintendo releasing. If they're not going to add a third tier, I don't think Switch Online is getting GameCube and Wii, just because. Well, first off, like, even with the expansion pass, it's still the cheapest year-long online service, especially if you use the family plan. It's like way cheaper than what anyone else is doing. And Nintendo knows they could, if they add those games and people want to play it, they're gonna subscribe. They're gonna make the money, even if they're annoyed, even if they're upset. Just like with the limited run of the Mario 3D All Stars, they're gonna buy it.
So let me throw another angle at you, though, right? If they have this tier system, there's another little complication.
Yeah.
And that complication is, if you're gonna make a Metroid Prime HD, if you're gonna have a Twilight Princess HD, if you're gonna have a Wind Waker HD, there's $60 releases, and then you're gonna turn around and add GameCube games, part of this online service, that are already upscaled to HD. It's a little bit of a mismatch, and I don't see them releasing Prime 1 or Wind Waker or Twilight Princess on this service when they have those remasters available. But then also it would be weird to have this service and not have the top 5 or 10 best games, 3 of them not there either.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm really
It's
fighting
true.
for my idea. Like,
No,
that's
no,
what I'm doing
I
right
feel
now.
you.
But
I want your idea personally. I want to
Yeah.
buy the GameCube games and have them on my Switch and never have to think about a subscription. But if hypothetically, let's say there's no plan to add a new tier of the Switch Online, and there's currently no plans to bring GameCube and Wii, I think at the very least they'll probably restructure Nintendo Switch Online with the successor to the Switch to no longer be like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and it will be a more expensive service like PlayStation Plus or what Microsoft is charging, and you're just paying the same as what everyone else gets, but you get it all in one. You get you get the NES, you get Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, you get GameCube, Wii, N64, Super Nintendo.
maybe
and it just costs what other people are playing.
I could see maybe them change the pricing structure, but maybe they do that around the announcement of their next generation system.
Yeah, as like we've restructured Nintendo Switch Online for the Switch 2 or whatever they call their next system. No more tier system. It's just a annual payment or a monthly fee, and this is everything you get. And
I
it's
could see
probably-
them doing that if they boost the actual online features, like the base online feature set. If they add things like voice chat as a just system-wide thing, if they add ways to talk to your friends via like chat rooms and things just in this built in the system, no more friend codes, things like that. If they completely restructure the way the online itself works, which I could definitely see next gen, because one of the biggest things that holds back like voice chat on the Switch is, first off, they're trying to keep like the OS very minimal, so they don't want things running in the background. More powerful system means you can keep the snappy UI that they have, and with more features. Because obviously the Wii U had like a very slow UI, and I feel like they definitely wanted to get away from that. But also, just the Bluetooth technology in the Switch sucks. I mean, they added Bluetooth audio support, and it's just not amazing. And the amount of actual Bluetooth like things that the Switch can support at once is not super high. Like, I've had times where the Joy-Cons just like won't connect anymore because I have too many connected, and it's like 6 or 8 or something. So it's like not that many. So I feel like next gen, you know, with better hardware and maybe some completely redesigned system, that they could roll everything into one. But I don't think you can increase the price of the base tier, just like the entry level into getting online, without adding things that are, actually beneficial for online itself. You can't just keep expecting people to pay for more random other things that they may or may not want just so they can have access to playing Splatoon 3 or something.
Yeah. It's tricky. I feel like, now we're getting into conversation about next gen, right? And when Nintendo does that transition, how they do that transition. Do we still kind of keep the services we have now, but it's just, we just transfer a Nintendo account, we still have everything we had on the eShop and stuff. If they do that, it'd be amazing. But maybe they just have a different pricing structure available on the other platform, It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But, regardless though, I definitely think there's a solid chance something for NSO is announced tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah. And at the very least, another N64 game.
Yeah. Yeah, it could just be the next run of games that are getting updated.
Yeah. Now, that said, what do you guys think is the next N64 game?
I want some rare titles, please. Some more rare titles. We got Banjo, but that's the only one.
I got a prediction, and I know I really went crazy with my predictions. My prediction is GoldenEye.
Oh.
It's not gonna happen.
The only crazier prediction is Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Yep. And that's never happening.
No.
Maybe I should never say never, but
I think GoldenEye's a fair prediction.
Yeah?
I think there's a shot.
Really?
Yeah, I know it's been so up and down, but I don't know. I think there's a shot that that's coming to Switch Online.
I feel like the only reason that's a shot is because of how many people are asking for it. If there wasn't such a high demand, I'd say it's impossible. But since people want it so badly, I feel like Nintendo might jump through the hoops that's necessary to bring it.
Sure, and Microsoft is they've been we'll play ball with Nintendo.
But there are third parties other than Nintendo and Microsoft, aren't there, that they have to go through as well.
Right, the licensing issues and stuff.
It's a licensing nightmare.
I could see with them combined, I could see them being let's make this happen. I didn't think Nintendo would get
two big juggernauts coming and asking for a license would probably work.
The thing is, GoldenEye is a big deal.
They worked with Disney on that.
Yeah.
The thing about GoldenEye is it's what popularized multiplayer shooters, and given that Nintendo Online is about you can take your virtual games online and play multiplayer, GoldenEye is the perfect fit for that. To take GoldenEye Online.
Mm-hmm. Actually running at 30 FPS for once.
I know a lot of people will get Nintendo Online for GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
all they have to announce the online, show the 4 Switches playing at the same time.
I think say for Conker's Bad. It's bigger than Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's a bigger deal than that. Is it just to make the distinction? We agree Conker's Bad Fur Day is harder to bring over, is less likely that it'll come over because of the kind of content of Conker's Bad Fur Day. But GoldenEye is more significant. That. I'm having a hard time thinking of any other N64 game Nintendo could announce that would be as significant as GoldenEye. They're really.
Yeah, I don't think
there's some stuff that would be great, and we already got Banjo-Kazooie, so there's that. There's nothing else. Pokemon Stadium would be great. I think that would definitely be a big one.
I heard somebody say that if they announced Game Boy and Game Boy Color, then they could have red and blue and use the connectivity with Stadium on the NCD4 if you had the expansion.
That would be insane, but that also seems like a lot to expect for NSO games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little tricky part to that. The only other thing that I can think beyond the Pokemon stuff, which that is pretty big. If the Pokemon stuff, especially if there was some sort of compatibility there, that would be insane. The only other thing that I think could rival the hugeness of what we're suggesting is something that is just ridiculous, and that would be Earthbound 64.
Yeah.
Which never finished. Just wouldn't. No.
That would be cool to see something weird and unreleased like that, because they did that with SNES with Star Fox 2, never released.
Yeah.
which is really cool.
I want to check into the chat real quick here. I got a super chat from Paint Fat Purple. Thank you very much. Very, very much. Paint Fat Purple says Zelda hype. And also, Paint Fat Purple has joined as a member. Thank you and welcome. Like, yeah, it's awesome. I'm glad you are a member now. And definitely there is Zelda hype. We haven't really dived too much into Zelda yet.
Sure.
We're gonna
touched on it, of course.
We've touched on it because it's really important. I mean, yeah. I mean, is there anything else we want to say in terms of like NSO stuff, or I think we're pretty much all right? Cool. Maybe now is the time to talk about Zelda. Let's see here. I got an at from Sunny Shields. I'll read that first, and then we'll jump in. Sunny Shields VO. Are you thinking this is the Breath of the Wild 2 blowout with the title, maybe some story stuff and gameplay, or do you think this is just another weak sauce teaser like usual? I just think that's funny. So, Cameron, how about you give us your thoughts first? Like, what do you expect? Let's just make this the dedicated Zelda segment of this part of the cast, right? It's the most important thing to talk about. Probably we've already covered Metroid. We still need to talk about the Mario trailer, so we'll get to that one. We've touched on it, but we haven't focused on it. But let's focus on Zelda right now. What are your Zelda predictions / expectations tomorrow?
I think they go big on Breath of the Wild. I think we get a big showing for it. I'm hoping for at least five. Like we're roughly a 40-minute. I'm hoping 5 minutes Breath of the Wild, 4 minutes Breath of the Wild, something in that vicinity. But I know some people are like, oh well, it's not guaranteed Breath of the Wild's going to be there. We might not exactly see it. We don't know for sure, especially if they're doing the Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. But man, this game's slated for early next year, spring 2023.
Spring 2022.
We really haven't seen much. We haven't even gotten a title yet because it's spoilery for maybe a mechanic or a feature that they haven't been ready to show off. I think we get a story trailer. I think we're going to get kind of like how we had that one for the first Breath of the Wild where everyone's like, oh crap, voice acting. And it kind of gave a little peek into some of the characters that we'll be spending time with in the game. I think we're going to get a story trailer that mixes some of the story and narrative with a deep dive on some like new mechanics. We're going to be seeing more of the arm power-ups. We're going to be seeing if dungeons are coming back, or if they're introducing some classic items like the iron boots or the hook shots or whatever. I think we're going to see all of that, and I think there's going to be some big surprises. I just did a Zelda video the other day on the channel, and I think one of the reasons that we've been waiting so long for this game is it's not going to be a cookie cutter sequel, copy and paste. I know they've introduced the element of the sky stuff, but I think there's going to be much more than that. I think they're going big. I think they know, like, hey, expectations are sky high. We can't just do Breath of the Wild again. What made that game so huge is that it like threw off everyone's expectations of what it meant to be a Zelda game. They're going to want to do that again. And I think there's going to be some unique curveballs that are going to come at us in this trailer that we just weren't expecting. And I don't mean to hype it up all crazy for everyone in the chat and stuff, but that's just truly what I feel. I think this game is really going to blow people's minds. I think it's going to go above and beyond what we were expecting. And I think that's why this has been one of, if not the longest development cycles between the two games that we've ever had in the series, especially from a game using the same assets, the same physics engine. This should have been a quick turnover for them, and it's not. And they've kept being like, just wait, we're delaying it, we want to make the best game possible. I think we're going to be blown away by what we see. I think we're not going to be fully expecting what we're seeing tomorrow. That's my opinion. Am I going too crazy? Let me know.
I don't think so. Like, I mean, they've shown this game off twice. The first time when they announced it, which who knows if that was even real footage, because it looks nothing like the footage we saw in 2021. So I don't know what's up with that. And then we saw it again, obviously, 2 years later, 2021. And we still haven't seen, as you were alluding, like any real information on this. I don't think there's really too much of a point in showing it this close to release, like spring 2021. realistically, it's most likely March. When is any big games come out? Like April, May, June? Like nothing. Like they're gonna release Zelda in those months? Most likely not. So most likely March seems like the if I was willing to bet, I would bet March. That's not that long. That's not that long.
No, assuming that's the case, it's now is the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because if we were looking for the original Breath of the Wild, which took a long time to get anything as well, people were considering that an extremely long and heavily delayed time period, and we're farther along than we were then with less information. By that time, E3 had come around, and we got the full blowout. The name, the big trailers, we knew everything there was that we needed to know before the game released. At this point, months ahead of this point, even.
I think
and
it's
we're
fair to
now
note,
speculating that we're worried that they're not going to show anything. I feel like that's a little crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll say that with Breath of the Wild, because we were getting hyped for that game throughout the Wii U era where there was nothing, Nintendo felt more pressure or saw more reason to give us little teases, because that was pretty much our only hope back on the Wii U, you know? Sure. Now with the Switch, there's games every day, so it's a way different environment. But to go back to Sunny Shield's question, I am thinking there's going to be somewhat of a blowout. You know, I'm kind of on the same page as you guys. I think it's going to be more significant than a teaser, but I also don't think it's going to be like a 20-minute presentation necessarily. I think it's going to be a healthy full-feature trailer with a couple words on the game and some sort of allusion to more details soon. Yeah. And this actually leads me into another interesting
I'm thinking
question.
5 to 7 minutes. Well, 4 to 7 minutes.
3 to 4. If you count the entire segment, a little bit more. But I want to get to this.
I'm counting the entire segment.
Yeah.
Like the trailer, them talking about it, them like everything about Zelda.
Yeah. I want to get to this point from Mad Lad here. Mad Lad says, how likely is it Nintendo skips the September Direct to showcase Breath of the Wild 2 at the Game Awards for the bigger audience? Well, I want to say almost zero.
Zero.
Yeah. So think about this. The Game Awards has so much going on. It's an award show. And they use a game announcements or teasers or reveals to hype things up, get people to watch. But they're usually short segments because of how much things are going with ads and all of that. So whatever it is, it's not going to be very long. I do think Breath of the Wild 2 probably will have some presence at the Game Awards. We may get another little additional trailer or another segment of gameplay, but it's not going to be a significant thing. It's not where you finally reveal the game. Even though I know I've talked about it in the past, but now thinking on it, it's not the place to showcase Breath of the Wild 2 for the first time, really. I think in a Direct, that's actually the proper venue to do it. It can be a little bit of a longer trailer, and that's when they can actually start the actual legitimate marketing campaign for Breath of the Wild 2, leading up to hopefully a March release.
Because the Game Awards, all you're going to get is a 30-second, maybe a minute-long trailer. Maybe longer than that if you're really lucky, but most games get very short segments, and you cannot talk about the game in any meaningful way after that. So it would just essentially be another tease. It would have to be another tease like we already got. Otherwise, you're just giving out like 30 seconds or a minute of information. You're not going to expound upon it at all after 4 years, like three years since they've shown this game. And it just doesn't make sense to show another teaser, not talk about it. It's just not the right place.
Yeah. I also want to know, like, Andres, like, I know you were a little bit more modest with how much time you think they might show Breath of the Wild. I'm kind of hoping for, like, the 4 to 5 minute. You were saying maybe 3 to 4. I honestly feel like we know so little about this game that they only really need 3 minutes to really blow our minds with the trailer. We know so little. Like, we don't, like, what's the replacement for Divine Beasts and, like, dungeons? What's the replacement for shrines? What are all the new powers? Other than the sky, can we travel the sea? Can we go underwater? Are we going underground? Yeah. Maybe. It kind of looks like it in the teaser. What's kind of, like, the narrative? What's going on with Zelda? Like, there's the whole game is covered in question marks. We've saw patents earlier that sound so rad, that kind of like hint at aerial combat with the bow, where you're doing like diving down in the sky and shit. Like, are they, like, even if they show 15-20 seconds of aerial combat in the sky, fighting like flying beasts and stuff. Like that's gonna be so epic and
Oh,
so
yeah.
rad. So they really don't need
Yeah.
that much time to hint at a
They-
big story piece, a big new the new type of dungeons that are gonna be in the games, or items, or powers, or whatever.
I mean, you think about what we've gone so far. Each teaser trailer is like what, like 90 seconds each.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're gonna get at least double that. I think it's gonna.
Yeah.
When I say like not 3 minutes, it's gonna be like 3.5 minutes. You know.
Yeah, I think the trailer itself is gonna be 3.5 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Like just the trailer.
But Onuma's gonna come out on stage and say something about the game. Like that's gonna happen too. I'm fairly certain of that because he comes out on stage for smaller Zelda games. So why not Breath of the Wild too? But also part of my Zelda expectations is that we're getting announcements for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. So I feel like at some point in the direct, they'll just be like, all right, they won't even like, I don't think Onuma will come out on stage for Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD. I think, well, I mean, conceivably they could. It could just be like a Zelda segment.
It's so much easier now with the way they do it, with just like throwing people in front of the green screen and talking about the segments. Like there's always somebody introducing the segment, so they can just pull in Miyamoto real easy for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, he could do that from his home if he wanted to with the green screen.
I could see them doing the thing where you get the 3-minute trailer, you see some epic new mechanic that's brand new, none of us were expecting, and then Anuma comes out, he's on the green screen, he's like, what you just saw was this brand new mechanic we've been working so hard on for this game. We really feel this is going to change the way you play Zelda games. Listen, they've hidden the name of the game from us because it's a spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of like all the previous Zelda games, excluding Breath of the Wild, that doesn't really ruin anything.
Yeah.
Like they're all kind of spoilery names, and they've never been scared to say it. Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. They're all kind of spoilery. Link Between Worlds. So what is it about this title that they're just not ready to show yet? It has to be something super exciting or fascinating, or allude to something we haven't seen in the Zelda series yet.
They need to show something significant. I think even more than just like one big mechanic. They need to show why this game is not just Breath of the Wild DLC. Yeah. Because at this point, it's been so long. The expectations before were that it's going to be like pretty quick because it's a sequel. You know, all these things we've been saying for years. But none of that seems to be the case anymore. So they need to show us that this time was worth it, and that, you know, this is going to be a big, truly new Zelda game, even though it's set in Hyrule. They need to quell all of our fears and get people like on the hype train, because right now the train, other than the fact that the direct was announced, the train is off the tracks in a ditch, half exploded. Everything it's carrying is strewn across the countryside. There's no hype for this game at this point, and for the most audience, for like even like among hardcore Nintendo fans, other than the fact that the direct is happening.
I think people are hyped, but I think it's more like
concept.
I said it in my last video. I said people are starving for just a morsel, like a nugget of information about this game. How long after Breath of the Wild is it? Is it years? Is it months? Has civilization started to rebuild? Are there new cities and towns that we didn't have before? Like these are the questions I think we're going to start.
We don't even really know what the game is fully going to look like, because we've seen it look with all like, clearly it didn't look like CGI or anything in the first trailer, right? It was all very like realistically the Switch could run this game, and it looked like something was actually running. But then the second trailer, we see like the sky area looking great and the ground area looking exactly like the original game. So like we don't even know what the game looks like fully. Like I don't even know what to expect visually from this game. We don't know anything, and I feel like there's 100%. We gotta know a lot more tomorrow, because the game's coming out next spring. Like how many months is it? If it's March, I'm just gonna look at my calendar right now, because my brain is not working enough to do math in my head. So okay, September, October, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 months or so, 6-7 months to March. Like, and we don't know like anything about this game, and I feel like they have to talk about it, because if they can't wait all the way till like January or even February is typically when they have the big directs nowadays, not even January anymore. So there's no other time but now to blow this game out. Unless it's getting delayed. That is the only option I can see, is it's getting delayed again. to like next holiday. Maybe they want to release it alongside like a new system next holiday. I could see that, but other than that, unless it's getting delayed,
if it's
we are
getting
seeing
delayed again. Then I see them doing an even gnarlier blowout trailer, because it's like at that point, it's like
you gotta quell
you gotta let them know that like the wait is so worth it.
Yeah, I don't think they can delay it again.
I feel like if we got a teaser,
show it later,
and it was delayed, and he walks out like, "Hey guys, real sorry. Here's a quick." You know, last time when they did like the delay update, and there was like just a few seconds of extra footage. If they did,
they can't do that again
one more time. I don't think that would go over too well. But if they did like a full blowout and everyone just like minds are rocked, I think they could get away with the delay, because people were like, "Dang, that sucks." But did you see what we're going to be playing?
That's fair. That is fair. Although they did not do that for Breath of the Wild any of the times they delayed that game. So
that's true.
I think they delayed it back when they announced the NX itself.
That game was clear. That game clearly would have been ready, but the Wii U was failing so hard that they had to, you know.
Switch was not ready yet, or the Switch's software lineup was not ready yet.
But no, like, yeah, I think we're all in for a really big treat, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think it would be a mistake, a big mistake, to not. And I get that people don't want to like hype up their expectations, but I do think it is within reason to expect something tomorrow. And I think it would be a misstep if they did not show it.
Yeah, I agree. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Sorry, cat.
Hey, kitty's so cute.
Now, I don't think that they'll show us everything that makes this game unique. I think they'll show us, you know, a big chunk, but I mean, even with things like Mario Odyssey, we didn't even know about like the capping mechanic till the E3 after they announced that game in January, and really talked about that. So like they keep you know, they like to keep a big feature as a secret to like pretty close till the game releases. So I could see if they want to talk about it again or have like a Zelda Direct early next year, they could definitely show off some more stuff. So it's not like we'll get like 100% grasp of every new mechanic. There's definitely stuff they're going to want to hide, but we should have a solid grasp. I think we'll see the name, a tentative release date at the very least, maybe not a day, but maybe confirming like March or something. We're going to get a solid, concrete idea of what makes this game a proper sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a prediction of like a mechanic or a story element or anything that you think we're gonna see? Maybe the
big one I've been saying for a while is
specific predictions for Zelda.
Underwater exploration is a big one for me, and just like more sea exploration.
I'll be so thrilled if we get underwater and there's like some like Atlantis style stuff in the Zelda universe.
Like imagine just like underwater ruins,
Flora civilization.
Yes. An entire like aquatic city like underwater. Yeah, I would love that,
because they could do things with Breath. Now that they've gone like the huge open world, they could do things where they branch off into there's different tribes of the Zora, or there's different sectors of the Rito clan and stuff. Maybe there's a different version of the Rito that's higher in the skies that you'll meet. You know, I think with a big world like this, it makes sense for them to have different variations of those races now.
Yeah, adding diversity in the amounts of like different types of races and the different enemy types as well is a big thing, because Breath of the Wild has very limited selection of like enemy types, and I mean they change it up sometimes, but usually it's like the same enemy with different colors. I would love it if they really took the time to go in and add a bunch of unique enemies with wholly unique fighting styles, because I do feel like a lot of the combat, the AI does some unique things, but in general, their actual like movesets aren't super unique to each other. So I would like to see like enemies that require more thought to take out than just let me grab my biggest weapon and go.
You know what
whack
we need?
This guy.
We need a Dark Nut. We need the Dark Nuts to come back.
Yeah.
The Dark Nuts in previous Zelda games, when you fought them, it was like a challenge of your skill with sword fighting.
It was like a one-on-one sword fight.
It was a one-on-one sword fight where you had to think. There was pacing and spacing. You know, you had to look for the parry. And Twilight Princess while knocking off chunks of armor. Like it was a boss fight. It was a boss fight that had a little bit of process to it. Yeah, a mini boss. And it wasn't like the typical, hit it 3 times, it's dead once you figure out the little, like, you know, hook to whatever the boss is. Like, it was its own thing. I want the Dark Nuts to come back.
Dark Nuts? Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say Dark Nuts I'd love to see, but also something like, because this game's giving off a much darker vibe. I'd love to see the return of like Pose and Redead.
Yes.
To really play into like that, you know, this Ganondorf that we're getting is like haunting. He might be a Lich Lord, so you know maybe he's animating and controlling these like undead like creatures. But continue your point. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got excited when you said Dark Knight.
That's fine.
That kind of plays into the more like, you know, they're creepy. They're like these Dark Knights that are pretty.
I mean,
pretty
we could
creepy.
talk about all sorts of things I'd like to see, right? I just think the things we're talking about, though, like overall, you think about what we're talking about them kind of going back to previous Zelda games. So I think with Breath of the Wild, the intent with it was to kind of go in a very polar direction. Like Skyward Sword was very linear. They're like, all right, let's do the exact opposite. Like, let's go as opposite as possible of linear. They made the most open game ever. You can do dungeons out of, or like everything, like all the dungeons and shrines.
Final boss at pretty much any time
at the beginning of the game.
Introductory.
You can do it literally at the beginning of the game. Well, you gotta beat the
intro part.
Yeah, but
tutorial segment.
But even then, some people found ways to kind of get through it, right? Like, there's some crazy stuff. I think Breath of the Wild 2. Like, if it's a spectrum, right? Like, if Skyward Sword's one end of the spectrum where everything's super linear, and then Breath of the Wild is like everything's super open. Breath of the Wild 2, I think it's not going to be in the middle. I think it's going to be closer to Breath of the Wild 1, but it's not going to be beyond Breath of the Wild 1 or on par. I think it's going to bring in some linear tropes, maybe. Like, I'm not expecting us being able to beat the boss at the beginning of the game, for example. I think we're going to see the return of classical style dungeons. I think we are going to see a return of some older enemies and other things.
More story that actually happens, I don't know,
right,
as the game goes on instead of before the game.
So, and basically, you know, I think what we see is going to give us evidence of that. Now, I also think they're going to do a great job, to your point, of differentiating this game. I think the most important element to do with this game is to show that how this game is different, like set its identity. I think that's what's most important here, because right now it just feels like we're getting DLC for Breath of the Wild.
We just could calling it the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild 2, and it's the same map, and it's the same.
We call it Breath of the Wild 2. Nintendo doesn't.
Yeah,
and
Nintendo's never calling it that yet.
And I think that's important. One, because it suggests that it's not going to have a 2 in the name. Otherwise, they would have been calling it Breath of the Wild 2 already. But also, 2, because once it finally gets its name reveal, once they actually start to show this game, it's about identifying it as whatever it is. Whatever it ends up being called. The Legend of Zelda, like Rise of the Wild, or Fallen Heroes, or whatever it's called, you know, something. The Zonai's Revenge. You know, like, whatever it's called, like, we're going to be like, all right, that's what this game is. And we're no longer going to call it Breath of the Wild 2. There's going to be a transition period because we've been calling it Breath of the Wild 2 for years. Breath of Evil, whatever. But that's what I think the trailer is going to do the most. I think inherently, it's going to be more story related, just because we're supposedly getting a name reveal. And with a name reveal, I think it's going to say a lot. There's still going to be gameplay deeply tied to that. We're going to learn about both. And it's going to be a hefty trailer, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a hefty trailer. We'll have some words from Enuma. They're going to announce the other 2 Zelda games. And that may end up being one entire Zelda segment. And that could end up being 6-7 minutes long, you know, if you account for everything. Maybe more like 5 or 6 minutes. But, you know, it's going to be a chunk of the Direct for sure.
Yeah. No, my gut feeling is that Breath of Wild 2 is going to be a blend of old and new. It's gonna be part Breath of Wild, part things that we loved about Zelda growing up. But while I think it's gonna be a blend of the two, I also think at the same time it's also gonna be
its own
paving
thing.
its way into its own thing. It's going to individualize itself, and I
Yeah.
just don't think we haven't seen what that key piece is, but I think it's going to be there. I think there's going to be that wow surprise that like none of us were expecting that.
You know, they may even bring up Twilight Princess Moon River HD and say, hey, when you play these games, you'll get a good understanding of how previous Zelda games were. Now the series has changed. In Breath of the Wild 2, we're going to be incorporating some of those elements. Like, they may say something to that effect, potentially, maybe not. You know, Skyward Sword, the influence is clear. The sky, and they showed off the sky in Breath of the Wild 2. So they may do something to that effect. But I mean, you know, it's kind of like they can't tell us everything though, right? Like we could maybe say, oh, they're gonna tell us more about the Zonai hand. They might not tell us about the Zonai hand. They might leave that a mystery. You know, we may still not get we may still not hear about voice acting. That might not be something we hear about until the end. You know, so we may not know what Ganondorf's voice is. But it could go either way. You know, we may not know what's going on with Zelda. Or the opposite. They may tell us what's happening with Zelda. They might finally show us the gameplay hook, but they still might just tell us pieces of the gameplay hook, and we still don't have the full picture.
Sure.
Ultimately, though, it's more about distinguishing itself.
Sure.
Right. I'm hoping they focus on showing us like the overworld and things that are different. Because every time they've showed the overworld so far, other than the fact that there's no technology in present, you can't see like the towers and everything. The Sheikah technology seems to have disappeared. Other than that, it looks exactly the same. Oh, and of course the castle's in the sky. But you know, anything else, exactly the same as it was left. So I want to know what's different about that. So that's one of the biggest things. Like, it's cool that there's a new sky area, but I feel like one of the biggest questions is, how are you making the current map? How are you reusing the same map and calling it a new game? That's what they need to prove to us, I think. That's a big thing.
It's a very unique situation. We've never really seen this happen before, where we see it as a direct sequel that's literally in the same map, right? Like, I haven't played Horizon Forbidden West, but if I'm not mistaken, it's in a different area. It's in the Forbidden West.
It's in the Forbidden West. Yeah, it's in America.
Right? Like, most sequels take place in a different area. When we had a direct sequel for Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, it was in a different place. It was in Termina, not Hyrule. But this takes place in Hyrule. So it's a very unique situation. I'm very curious how they're going to handle it.
Yeah. And that'll give us a good cue. I think, like I said, like seeing new towns, new cities, like signs of like civilization repairing itself post the apocalypse of Breath of the Wild, basically. And I don't know, maybe they'll incorporate some stuff like that. I think Breath of the Wild would have really benefited from. Like, sailing wasn't that fun in Breath of the Wild. You know, you're using like the Deku Leaf and going like this at the sail. Maybe you'll actually get to like really sail out there like Wind Waker style, you know, and explore the oceans, and they'll, you know, extend that border. There's new islands, there's new places to explore. We talked about underwater already. They've kind of teased at underground caverns and stuff, so that's another way to really expand that map and flesh it out and make it more dense. But we just don't know that stuff yet. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely go on and on about Zelda. I would love to have like a post show, you know, maybe sometime this week if possible. There's going to be so much to talk about after tomorrow. It's going to be insane.
Oh god, next week's podcast is going to be lit.
It's going to be. We may have to have like several like I will figure out the plan for covering everything tomorrow. It's going to be ridiculous, but I do want to move on from Zelda, just because there's still other things we can talk about, and we'll probably still touch on Zelda for a little bit, because I don't want to go on much longer, because, well, we gotta get up in the morning, so and I'm gonna stream, so we're down to the last half hour for the show is basically what I'm saying. So guys, if you want to like ask questions, it can be about Zelda or whatever, just at me. I'll try and get to it before the end. But there's a couple things I want to talk about, and then I want to kind of maybe just get all of our predictions out there, and we'll close things out. So the other thing I've talked about discussing is the Mario movie trailer. I think we're all on the same page. It seems like we all expect to see it there. Is that the case, or do you guys disagree?
I mean, we saw announced the voice actors and everything last year in the September Direct, so why
Right.
not show it off full this year?
Yeah, the precedent's already
It was
there.
supposed to release in December. It got pushed to spring. So
April.
It's coming out, or April, yeah.
Unless it gets delayed, but I mean, like,
It's coming out. I'm assuming they've got a trailer ready to go for this. We also have Super Nintendo World opening up at Universal early next year as well. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, what do you think we could see in this Mario movie trailer? Like what kind of, like, what's it? I mean, it's kind of tough, right? Like, I wish I could like go on with ideas on like what it could entail. It's tough. I mean, I think obviously we'll learn. We're gonna hear voices. And that's the crazy thing, you know. Typically, Nintendo doesn't do voice acting for most of their games, and here we are going to get a voice acted movie, and we're going to get the other characters won't be that big of a deal, but hearing Mario and Bowser is going to be crazy. Actually, having a voice acted Donkey Kong is also going to be weird. By Seth Rogen, like that's going to be different, you know. Hearing Peach talk,
be like
not that crazy.
Scooby-Doo kind of talk where he's like very heavy, like gorilla accent with just like basic words and phrases, but not like, obviously it's not Donkey Kong's just gonna speak in sentences. I hope not.
I don't know. That's what's crazy. We don't know what direction they're gonna take the characters. So we're gonna learn about that.
I think the casting for this movie is excellent. I don't know why, like. The first one that I was like, oh my god, that's perfect, and maybe you guys will disagree. When they said Jack Black is voicing Bowser,
yes.
I mean, I knew right away when they were cast, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a comedy. This is gonna be a funny Nintendo movie.
They got a lot of humorous actors there,
it's all really great.
And then the girl for Queen's Gambit for Peach, which is, I don't know if that's
Chris
humorous.
Pratt's like all comedy
I've never seen Anna Taylor-Joy in a comedy before.
No, but she's definitely could do a good princess.
Yes, and she's a great actress. She's got good chops. Everyone else, phenomenal comedic timing. I mean, Charlie Day as Luigi. He plays that like neurotic kind of, you know, nervous character. I think he's going to be great. Like, I don't know. I think the casting's really exciting. I think the one thing we can take from what we do know is it's probably going to be a pretty funny movie. Like, that's probably what they're going for.
I'm hoping they go for a kind of feel like the Mario and Luigi games where Bowser's just a big goofball.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I hope he's not even the villain. I hope there's another villain.
Right.
Like Fawful or something.
Cranky Kong's the villain. Make Cranky Kong the villain. I would love that.
He just goes back to his old days where he kidnaps princesses.
No. Like, there's a plot. Like, think about it. Like, Cranky Kong's pissed because he's the original Donkey Kong. You know? Like, and what if they tie in the actual history of Mario and like, damn, I've always hated you, Mario. And Donkey Kong's like, nah, we're chill.
That'd be
hilarious. Like that would be, that's in the past. Like, that would be cool, you know?
I think the big advantage that they have with this movie is Nintendo's so protective of their IP that I see them really embracing the source material, which is my biggest problem with most video games to movie.
Yeah.
They're too scared to embrace the source material.
I think you're on point here.
Add this weird spin on it. Like, I think the Sonic movies are fun. You know, they're serviceable. I think Jim Carrey's an amazing Robotnik. But the worst thing about the Sonic movies is, like, why does it have to take place in, like, why not just have it take place in his universe, like in the Green Hill Zone and the Mushroom Hill Zone? Why does it have to be, like, in the city with, like, people who are, like, stressed out and, like, can't, they always have to do that.
I feel like they went for, like, the
Monster Hunter movie had to open up
vibe.
with the military on a mission and getting sucked through a wormhole. You know, like, why does it always have to tie the real world? It's like, just make a Mario movie.
And that's actually an exciting thing here, because one, I'll be a little disappointed if it ends up being in the real world, but I mean, it's not a live action. This is an animated movie, like CGI. So, you know, that we could see the Mushroom Kingdom, it could just be like that, and I think that would be best.
I would hope they go for like a Mario Odyssey, but like obviously, like if you had all the power in the world to render that, but like stick with something that actually, like, I feel like 3D Mario, like their art styles these days can translate very easily into a movie. I don't feel like you have to go into like some kind of radical shift away from what the games actually look like, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nintendo might be worried about the Direct tomorrow, though, because the Mario movie, like, maybe that's why they're going to come out with Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and Prime HD, and F-Zero GX. Because they're gonna put out all these core entry stuff to make the gamers, like, super happy. It's like, oh my god, all this stuff is finally happening. They'll add GameCube and Game Boy to end it, so, like, they're gonna do it all. And they're gonna put out the Mario movie trailer being deathly afraid of fan reactions.
Yeah.
Because Chris Pratt, I don't have a problem with him. I think he's great. But we don't have, like, an image of how Mario talks. And that, like, it's one thing for Bowser, for Donkey Kong, for Peach. Like, they kind of fit these certain themes. But Mario has been a relatively silent character. He does talk. He like in Mario 64, oh, ravioli, right? That's always the end of my videos. But, like, he hasn't, like, spoken, like, legitimate dialogue. Donkey Kong had a show. Oh, actually, Mario had a show too, but whatever.
It's Link.
It's tough because I know a lot of people when they first announced it, they're like, "Oh, why not just get Charles Martinet? He's voiced Mario the whole time."
But he's not a movie actor.
Yeah, I don't think
he is in the movie
in a feature-long movie. I think it works really well with "It's me, Mario," and woohoo.
Yeah, but, like, you don't see him do dialogue.
Tell a story,
yeah,
and have, like, he's gotta have good comedic timing, and maybe there'll be some emotional beats, some sad moments in the movie. You don't want it to sound like cheesy, fake Italian accent, you know?
Yeah, like
you want it to be acted well.
Have we seen him do like scenes? Sorry.
Oh yeah, he has at like press events and stuff done like full sentences, and people always say it sounds weird, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
So it's been a thing that Charles Martinet has tried this at several times, and people did not enjoy it.
Yeah, because it's too campy for long dialogue.
I do think he could do like some kind of voiceover narration at the beginning and end of the movie, though, because he has a part to play in the movie. Yeah. So I assume that's kind of what he does. He introduces the world of Mario and what's going on, and then at the end he says something nice and concludes it.
Right.
Maybe does his own wahoo.
You ready?
His Mario accent at the end.
Charles Martinet is Mario. But wait, how does this make sense? Chris Pratt's
old Mario.
Exactly. You think about it. Cranky Kong is old Donkey Kong. What if there's an old Mario, and Mario today is actually Mario Jr.?
It's actually Mario Jr.? Dang. That would actually...
It would explain the entire timeline. Everything would just make sense.
Why is Cranky Kong so old and Mario so young?
Because they're different species.
They're different species, yes.
Or...
Shush.
But I hope if thing where they go for like it's Mario in the city for like the beginning of it. I hope it's New Donk. Don't make it like New York or Brooklyn. Make it New Donk City, and you get sucked through a warp pipe, and that's where the adventure begins. At least it's staying true within what we've seen in the Mario universe, you know?
Or it's just Mario in the Mushroom Kingdom. You know?
Or it's just Mario in the Mushroom, which is what it should be.
I don't want it to be generic, though.
I want New Donk City to exist, though.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they don't just stick to like new Super Mario Brothers levels of bland for the theming of this movie. Like, bring in areas like New Donk City and like crazy worlds, and make him go explore places.
Make it an adventure, like
that Food King, the Luncheon Kingdom is what it's called in Mario Odyssey. Yeah, make stuff like that. Like, make him go explore some crazy places. Like, I don't want any more generic Mario crap for this. A million Toads. Bring in some crazy new characters, a crazy new villain or something. Or bring back an old villain that's really cool, like Fawful or somebody like that.
Yeah. And I mostly hope that the movie's good. I hope people are receptive and people aren't just hating for the sake of hating. Like, I genuinely hope it's a good movie, because I want a Nintendo cinematic universe. I want them to be like, this worked really well. How could we do a Star Fox anime? Could we do a F-Zero show? Could we do a
Zelda HBO series?
Right.
Yeah. Be sick. It
Man.
would be sick.
Imagine a world where Netflix didn't leak the Zelda thing and we actually got that.
That would have been cool. But Nintendo
And
will
that
make it
didn't
HBO.
ruin like tons of plans for Netflix adaptations.
All right, so I want to move on because we're running out of time. Are there any final predictions you guys had that we haven't touched on already?
Well, I think we'll see Splatoon again.
Sure.
That's a good one.
I think they'll do a reminder, and maybe the announcement of the first Splatfest, the first official Splatfest.
Right.
Or even a roadmap for like some of the events,
Or at least just a next update, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me think. I don't know. So we've talked about the possibility of Prime and a 2D Mario. I still feel like there's possibly room for one more game we didn't know about.
Yeah.
For next
Yeah.
year.
Could be Fire Emblem.
Donkey Kong, Fire Emblem.
Could be Donkey Kong.
I don't think it's Pikmin, although I'd be really happy if it was.
Yeah, Pikmin would be nice.
I honestly think Pikmin is not far off.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's at this direct.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a summer title. They may announce it.
F-Zero remaster, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's one of my predictions. I'm predicting the F-Zero GX remaster. But they could save that too, you know, for like maybe an earlier direct next year.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's room for one more surprise. Maybe it's another collab, you know, like kind of how they're doing the Rayman.
Oh, you know what we haven't talked about? We have not asked Cameron what he thinks about Kid Icarus Uprising happening. A remake of that game.
Oh, yeah. I know that's been rumored. I know people really want it. I think that'd actually be awesome. No, I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, maybe it's a new Kid Icarus, you know?
Maybe, but we're going off of the belief that it is what Bandai Namco is currently remaking, so that wouldn't really fit in. But I would love a new game as well, eventually.
I feel like these remasters we're hearing about Kid Icarus Uprising, the F-Zero GX, Advance Wars, they are Nintendo using, like, if they succeed, they have the opportunity to then move on to, all right, then we're going to do like an actual proper one. Like if F-Zero GX does well, you think Nintendo's like, oh man, that F-Zero GX game sold 3 million. We should, like, you know, never make F-Zero again. By the way, F-Zero GX doesn't have to sell 3 million. If it sells 1 million copies, they'll be like, oh, there's something here, you know?
Yeah.
I think that should be the goal for the GX remaster. 1 million. If it sells 1 million copies, we will see a new F-Zero in the next like 6 years.
Right. I originally thought we would be seeing a new Fire Emblem this year.
Yeah, we got Fire Emblem 3 Houses Warriors.
Yeah, we got
3 Houses.
Now,
yeah.
Now I don't think it's likely. We've gotten so many tactics games this year between Triangle Strategy. There's a couple of those Square ones that came out. We've got Metal Slug Tactics coming out. We've got Advance Wars that's still yet to come out. Like, there's so much tactics stuff going on right now that I could see them holding off on that.
I mean, because 3 Houses Warriors came out recently, and I think Brandon brought up
Hopes.
Whatever the hell, man. It's based off 3 Houses, and it's a Warriors game. But you're right, 3 Hopes.
Warriors.
Because of that, though, right? Like, it makes sense. Maybe that does get DLC. They talk about that, and we wait for the Fire Emblem announcement next year. Because I do think I have a hard time believing we go another year without Fire Emblem. Like, there's got to be a new Fire Emblem. I just think
we haven't had a new mainline
maybe
one,
it's announced later.
Even a remake would be fine. Like, we haven't had an actual like Fire Emblem game since 2019. So.
Yeah, it's time for sure, definitely. So, I mean, we brought up possibilities, but is that it for predictions?
I think that is all. Yeah, I don't really want to predict anything else.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're gonna get like a quick refresh on some stuff we already know about, like Splatoon or
Xenoblade 3 DLC. Actually, here's an interesting question that I think is a tough call. Do we get a news on Wave 3? for Mario Kart. That's a tough call, right? Because we just got Wave 2.
Yeah, and there was a long break between Wave 1 and Wave 2.
Yeah,
Too long.
But that was a lot
could
longer than
be
I was
waiting.
expecting. I was actually expecting to get like news like every few months.
It could be like Smash, where there was a
Because
big
there's so
gap,
many
and then they
tracks.
released the next two like really quickly. So
Yeah,
I mean,
but
if they
it
want to
just-
stay on schedule, they might release the
how-
next one quicker.
How long has it been out for already? Has it even been a month?
I mean, they don't have to announce it to release today, tomorrow or whatever.
But even what they can, they're not going
announce
to
it for
announce
next
it and
month.
release it a month later.
Maybe not.
It's DLC, right? Like I just don't see that. Maybe a couple weeks, maybe. But I don't see them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
'Cause
something
don't
they can
need
just
to
shadow
announce
drop.
it in a direct, yeah. They
Not
just-
shadow drop, but like release a trailer and say, hey, it's coming out in a week. Like,
Yeah.
I
I don't need it to announce it in a direct, really. Honestly, it's kind of just a waste of time.
yeah,
If you're not going to release it soon, I mean, obviously,
Yeah, I
Mario
guess
Kart
that-
DLC
and
is
that-
not
and
a
that's-
waste of time.
right. And that's just kind of like why I'm not sure. The company announced last. So the Booster Course Pass arrived on August. It arrived. It came out August 4th. So we're already over a month away since it released. Is that really true?
I
See
would
that?
believe it.
Yeah, it feels like about a month.
Wow,
Feels
time
like that.
flies.
Time does.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about this potential September Direct, which I correctly predicted, by the way.
Oh yeah.
For
we didn't
weeks.
give you your props. So.
And,
Brandon and I have talked about when we're gonna actually get this game, like the actual,
the
like
Direct.
yeah, and I said game. I'm still looking at the Mario Kart stuff. We speculated, right? And I've been like, it's September 14th. Brandon's like, no, September 13th. I'm like, yeah, well, we've only seen Tuesday Directs when it's E3. Maybe because this might be basically an E3 replacement.
Yeah.
It makes
we
sense
haven't even
because
mentioned the fact that PlayStation's having a Direct tomorrow, or Direct, they call it State of Play, I think, tomorrow.
yeah. So
For these 20 minutes, but still.
yeah, I think it might have more to do with the fact just to kind of space things out from the Tokyo Game Show.
Oh yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason I thought the Nintendo Direct was going to be today or tomorrow. Same reason they're doing the Sony Direct tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because they want everything ready for the Tokyo Game Show because they've been showing the same stuff off there. I mean, they are showing off PSVR 2 as a big thing for their show, so they're definitely going to show those demos off at Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah.
So same kind of reason, same logic.
And it's kind of like, it's basically what you said. Like you even suggested, like maybe they'll announce the Direct today, so we can talk about it for the podcast. We talked about it last week.
Yeah,
so
I did. I said that. I
Brandon's
predicted
spot on this one.
that
Yeah.
was pretty good.
Who's your source?
I mean,
Brandon?
who's my source? My big
Yeah.
brain.
What's his name? I want it.
It's called
His
Logic.
name is Brandon Tackett.
The hunt for Brandon Tackett's brain.
Yeah.
It begins.
You know what we haven't touched on though is TGS and what we think might be shown because they're gonna show probably the biggest things
Harvestella.
that they show in the the biggest things they show in the Direct are what's gonna be shown in Tokyo Game Show, right? So do we think that we could see gameplay of Breath of the Wild 2 in the Tokyo Game Show?
No, I think it's more of a third-party thing.
Cell phone games. TGS.
Yeah,
No, I feel like
I mean, they
when-
showed like Monster Hunter at TGS, so it's not like they don't show big games.
but yeah, third party. Like
Yeah,
I think
third party.
That's
third party
really
like
it.
Square stuff. I think whatever Square stuff we see at tomorrow's Direct, which we'll at least see one Square thing tomorrow, probably more than one thing because Square's had a pretty big presence. And
I'm actually they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake for Switch.
that'd be awesome.
Also impossible.
I want that 1 through 6 collection they announced and then said it's coming to iOS.
I'm
And
trying to.
everyone cried tears.
Square Enix and their remakes and collections, as I said, outside the HD 2D stuff and their full remakes like Final Fantasy VII, they've been dropping the ball on what they're doing.
Dude,
You
they're
know,
leaving
since we're
money on the table. Switch would easily be the top-selling platform for the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 collection.
And maybe they'll announce that at this Direct or at TGS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
who knows?
so.
I can see
But I think
that.
anything from Square that we see will definitely be at TGS. I just don't see like big Nintendo stuff like Mario, Zelda.
Mm-mm.
That's
being,
fair.
like, featured there. Maybe they'll do a treehouse thing during. I don't know, but
Maybe.
I don't think it. They did. They don't really have a pattern of it.
Could we see things like Bayonetta though?
Maybe Bayonetta. Yeah, I feel like that's like Japanese enough.
Maybe. There is something that hasn't been discussed recently that's third party that could show up in the Direct and also the Tokyo Game Show. A Resident Evil game made specifically for Switch.
Ooh.
Since Sunbreak is out now, right? Like the big Capcom game being Monster Hunter, like they can transition to maybe start hyping up the next big Capcom game for Nintendo.
It's possible.
Maybe Revelations 3.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I hope they just give it in a different name, mainly because I don't know. I just didn't like the feel of Revelations. I didn't play the second one. I want to play the first one.
I would be interested
on
to
3DS.
see what they can do with the RE engine when actually working on RE. Even though the RE engine doesn't actually stand for Resident Evil, by the way.
It's funny, but you look at what they did with Monster Hunter Rise, and that's kind of like larger, more open areas. Like Resident Evil is not a game of large open areas, really. It's more,
smaller type art. It's much more fit to what the Switch can do.
Yeah,
for the most part,
they could make something pretty good looking for Switch. Yeah. It could be. I think it'd be impressive.
I would doubt it. I would be so surprised if Monster Hunter was the only big RE engine game to come to the base Switch.
Yeah, the thing is, also they may be like saving it for Switch too. We're gonna like time it so there's two different versions.
I do think Switch 2 is going to cause an explosion in third-party content just in general with the capabilities of that system, but we see good, exclusive third-party stuff on Switch already, so it's not impossible.
That stuff's phenomenal.
Yeah. Astral Chain's my favorite example of that.
Astral Chain 2, is it time? No.
Oh, dude, I would lose my mind, but no.
I don't think so, because Bayonetta 3, right? Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that. Yeah, obviously, Bayonetta 3, I think, is going to get another mention. Same thing with Mario Rabbids. Yeah.
Bayonetta 3 is probably going to have a pretty significant time slot. Like 3 minutes, I'd suspect.
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end of the discussion, guys. And if you shoot like some interesting questions right now, last second, I'll try and get to them. But I'm trying to close things out very soon, within a couple minutes. I have to eat and get ready. And yeah, I had a migraine before the show. Just want to point out.
On the show, I'm blowing my nose and stuff, but
it's all good.
I couldn't let it get in the way of talking Nintendo with you guys.
Gotta fight through for the Direct.
That's right.
Good. Let's see here. Oh, that's a good point. All right, sorry, I just read this. Leo Aguiar. I know one thing that we talked about is having golf and Nintendo Switch Sports or maybe boards for Mario Party Superstars.
True.
Feels like it would be a little late for Superstars DLC, but it's not super late. It's only been about a year, less than a year technically. So Superstar boards would be amazing.
Use some more boards. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm all in on that. I would love to see that. So
with the online support it's gotten, you'd think that they would really want to keep that game going.
Heck, and you know what would also
it's
be
one
a
of their
great
best
idea?
Online games.
You know what? Going back to what they could announce to kind of retain Nintendo Switch Online members, they could announce Mario Party Superstars DLC, and it's free with Nintendo Switch Online. Like that I think would probably make the most sense.
Add another like 5 boards or something like that.
I'll even take 2. But anyway, by the way, It Takes Two. I think that'll also be announced during the Direct.
Oh.
Yeah. Like the transition?
That game could run on Switch. I feel like it'd be a lot of work.
If you guys have never played that in chat, that is a brilliant game.
Yeah. It's a really incredible podcast.
I'm wondering if they have a team that wants to put in the heavy amount of work to make that work on the Switch, but it's possible.
I'll tell you, Jeff Grubb's saying it's coming.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear about that.
Maybe
it's more likely. Yeah.
Oh, I changed my mind now. You gotta believe. I mean, I believe him. That's why I brought it up. So it's not just a cool idea. I always kind of wanted Takes Two to come to Switch, but because it's just better to play.
One of those games that I feel like would thrive on the Switch.
Yeah, co-op games and multiplayer games thrive on Nintendo.
It's a shame because like that game was so brilliant. Like I know like if Switch gamers had an opportunity to play that, they probably.
I'm just hoping that it gets the attention it deserves, because
Sure.
I could definitely see. I mean, it's very demanding, not only graphically, but like they do a lot of physics simulation and
Yeah.
stuff. So if they don't take the time to properly make that work on the Switch, it could be a disaster.
I think
I
it'll
don't
be
want
fine.
this game running at 15 to 20 FPS. or
No, I think
something.
the FPS will be fine. Resolution will probably be dynamic, but it'll be okay. Also, Leo mentioned golf for Switch Sports. Yeah, they're going to announce that. Oh yeah, it's coming out. So it may be even shadow dropped. So yeah, I see that for sure. Announcing Switch Sports DLC would be cool.
That game needs a lot more content.
Yeah, that would be nice to see on there. See here, guy you don't know. Regarding 2D Mario, I wonder if Nintendo will take inspiration from fan ideas from Mario Maker or popular Mario 2D platforms. I think that could benefit from the game's creative process. You know, I'm not sure on that, but I will say maybe they should have some allusions to actual gameplay from Mario games. That's something that probably will be there to some extent, I would hope. Charles Trudell, you may have something in mind that the internet forgot about. Ooh, it's possible. Let's see. Joey CJ says, with Sony having their presentation, I'm definitely betting on Breath of the Wild 2 stuff. Nintendo probably scrambling a bit right now. I don't know. They might just.
I don't think Nintendo's scrambling at all.
Yeah, I don't know if Nintendo's scrambling. I feel like they've been sitting on so much stuff. They're just everything's very calculated for them.
Yeah.
They're so ahead of the game.
Sony's gonna show. It's gonna be very different because they're focused on like a big part of it's gonna be like VR stuff and VR games. Like they have to show why this new headset is gonna be worth the, I'm sure, exorbitant prices they're gonna charge for that thing, and that it's gonna get support, and it's just got a completely different focus. I'm sure they'll have some stuff, that's just for like the PS5. They said they would, just like new games, but there's a lot of different things that are gonna show that aren't necessarily competing with Nintendo at all directly. And also their show is just way shorter too. They said roughly 20 minutes of content, whereas covering about 10 games, whereas Nintendo said they're going to cover 40 minutes of content here. I just don't think that they're scrambling or anything like that.
I don't think Nintendo's worried. I don't think Nintendo really cares.
I mean, we predicted Nintendo doing it on this day, and anybody could have done the same thing for Sony. So it's likely that Nintendo also knew that Sony was going to do a presentation today or tomorrow or Wednesday before TGS.
But
so I don't think they're surprised in any capacity.
Also never really. They don't garner the same level of hype.
No.
And Sony's been more spread out because they've already had some of them. So I'm not really. I don't think it's really major.
Sony does a
at all.
lot more of them, it feels like, but they're less important each time.
Yeah. This will be the last question. I don't feel like I'm necessarily the best equipped to answer this question, but I'll do my best. Having Hope 5 added me. Do you think there will ever be a remake or remaster of the Xenosaga or Xenogears series? So for those who don't know, I haven't played them, but they were made by Monolith Soft before they were owned by Nintendo. They came on the PlayStation systems. And they're basically kind of like a precursor to the Xenoblade series. There's the whole Xeno name is part of that. So Xenoblade is a spiritual successor to those.
Isn't that why they were still? Aren't some of the rights they're not wholly owned by Monolith though? Games.
And I think that's where the complication is at. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because I heard something about Bandai Namco recently upping the rights for Xenogears or Xenosaga actually, which made people think that they might be releasing something, but at the same time, rights re-upping doesn't really mean anything because that just happens whenever it needs to happen. So,
I would love for them to remake those games. I never played Xenogears, but I know it's loved. I did play Xenosaga on the PS2.
I've not gotten the chance to play either of those series.
Really, really cool games. Sci-fi, JRPG, space exploration. They're really cool.
Right up my alley.
They were insanely cinematic heavy and dialogue heavy, like old school MGS games. So you'd enter a cutscene that would last like 30 minutes and stuff.
I mean, to be fair, Xenoblade 3 is the exact same way, and so is Xenoblade 2.
Yeah, they
Right,
have.
right.
It's like watching episodes of anime or something. Like they're
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's how Xenosaga was. And like in the beginning of the games, it was a little bit of a slog because it wasn't a lot of action right away, and that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why the games didn't do so well. And I actually read a thing recently about how when Xenosaga creator was coming up for the idea of Xenoblade Chronicles, it was supposed to be called something, the Monado something, and have no Xeno in the name. But Satoru Iwata actually encouraged it and said, no, don't ditch the name of those games that you created. Like, there's something cool here. Keep that. Make it, keep it in that universe and stuff.
Now, it would be interesting.
He's very soured by the reception of his older games.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to see if they ever could get ported to Switch at some point.
I would love it if they just went back and like completely rethought them. Because if you do,
the thing is, Monolith Soft is not going to go back to them.
Wow.
Right? Because it
seems unlikely.
It's a whole rights issue.
I mean, it's not like Bandai Namco isn't willing to work with people, and it's not like other rights issues haven't been overcome. But it does make it not as easy for Microsoft to just decide to do it. Obviously, they would need to come up with the rights, but at the same time, it's not like these are like huge rights. Like, how are these rights making Bandai Namco any money at the moment? They're not.
By the
They're
way,
essentially just paying to keep them.
Squaresoft published Xenogears. Yeah.
So it would be to the benefit if these rights that they are paying to keep actually were worth something through a remake or just a remaster or doing something with the IP, so it's not just sitting there costing them money.
Yeah, so it basically like it's just like it's almost like they've changed the Xeno series depending which publisher it is. So when Monolith Soft used to be a part of Square Enix, when they were called Squaresoft, it was Xenogears apparently. Then when they were under Bandai Namco, they made Xenosaga, and with Nintendo they make Xenoblade. So, not saying I've never played them myself. I'd love to go back to them. That would be cool. So, I would love that. At least Xenosaga I could see maybe coming because of Bandai Namco. I mean, not saying Square does work with Nintendo. Like, in theory, we could get both. Because Nintendo has a decent relationship with them, and Square is all about bringing back old RPGs. Like, they're all about that, days, so they could happen. I feel like it's not impossible. The only issue, though, I think Sony had a hand in publishing these games, too, and that may be where it gets a little tricky.
Lines are blurred.
Maybe.
However, one of the main characters from Xenosaga is in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as a Blade, Cosmos.
Yeah.
So they were able at least to
get a reference.
Part of that license or work out a deal with whoever.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I would like to see them because I am a fan of the Xenoblade series, and I would like to play them
at this point. I would love to just see, I don't know, all of Xenoblade Chronicles on Switch. We still don't have X.
We have 1 through 3 though, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, but before, I feel like we should get X before we get like Xenogears and Xenosaga.
I think they're gonna be two separate things. Like, I don't think like that. I think we shouldn't look at Xenogears and Xenosaga as part of like the Xenoblade world or series, even though they're connected.
I'm not. I'm just
mean
saying, it feels crazy that we would get something as old and like as difficult as it would be, or like it's way easier to bring X over and makes way more sense than Xenogears or Xenosaga. So it would be weird if we don't get Xenoblade X and we get Xenoblade or Xenosaga and Xenogears.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm gonna be a douche and also just iterate again that they'd be two entirely separate, independent efforts that are not correlated with each other in any way. But I do agree with you.
Yes.
It would be weird to see those come before Xenoblade X because Xenoblade X is owned by Nintendo. The only ones holding back Nintendo is Nintendo. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Xenoblade X.
But I honestly think it's just a timing thing. I think they just because Xenoblade X is an incredible game. I do think it needs to be touched up a little bit, not even necessarily visually, but more so like the UI, the text was very small, just quality of life updates, subtle things, nothing significant. And you know, I mean, obviously they probably would release like a 1080p version, and there you go, $60. Like that can come out 2 or 3 years down the road and be fine. And with Xenoblade 3 done, I think that's probably what will happen. So we got a super chat here from Taker. I will do this, and then I'm actually ending the show. Taker 610. Perhaps Waiver 64 precedes an all new game. Well,
like a new wave race.
Well, F-Zero X came out on N64 Online, so maybe that one too. You know, I would love to see a new wave race. There's nothing rumored right now. Whenever I've talked about Nintendo racing games, it's always been like, hey, we need something more than just Mario Kart. I think Nintendo should go back to the Excite series. They should go back to F-Zero. They should go back to Wave Race. There was the snowboarding games. Those 1080 kids. Yeah, 1080. They need to go back to that. Heck, Pilot Wings, even though it's not technically a racing thing, they could even change it a little bit. Maybe even make it a little bit of like a racing adventure game. Maybe not, but still, there's other games like there's so many games they could go back to that would be amazing. A new Diddy Kong Racing would also be awesome. So, you know, at some point in the future, I think it will happen. And I think with this rumored F-Zero GX remaster, it opens the door for more racing games. Like if Nintendo can go back to racing games, see it succeed, maybe do F-Zero X, and like, oh, you know what? Maybe we can bring back a Wave Race or an Excite, you know? And
using one hit to open the floodgates.
Yeah. It's another reason why I wanted Advance Wars to do well, right? Because Nintendo's going back to this. If this succeeds, maybe they'll go back to Golden Sun too. You know, that would be incredible if we got a new Golden Sun remaster. That would be so cool. Amazing. And then maybe we get a new Advance Wars in the future. Like, there's a lot of potential here. And I think the reason we're getting a lot of these like older games, like getting another chance, like 2D Metroid, things like that, is because we're so late to Switch's life cycle already. Nintendo's already released all the big like main entries already that are evergreen. They're moving on to developments for the next system and things like that. So there's a window for these other games to finally establish themselves in this ecosystem where so many people are playing Switch. So it's a beautiful opportunity for Nintendo to kind of put some life back into some of their older franchises. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, but I think I'm gonna cut it off there because we gotta move on to tomorrow. Thank you everyone for watching the show. Leave a like, it'd be super appreciated. You guys being here was a pleasure. We will be streaming tomorrow. I'm thinking at least 30 minutes before showtime. We'll do that. I'm planning on showing up the Nintendo Prime stream too. He's starting like 90 minutes early, so I may pop in there too, so keep that in mind. Guys, please make sure to check out Cameron's channel, Gamebird Classic. It is linked in the description below. You know, you also can follow Brandon on Twitter. What about Knobnarb? He's there. If you go to my Twitter, you'll find him there too. So please check him out as well. But that's all for an hour, everyone. Have a good one. Try and get some sleep, even though there's so much anticipation for tomorrow. I think even if nothing we talked about today shows up, which would be mind-blowing, we're still in for a good presentation. So, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, guys.